welcome to meeting number 24 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Finance. Pursuant to the order of reference of Tuesday, March 24th, the committee is meeting on the government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. We have quite a number of witnesses here on this panel today, so without any formalities, I will start. I would ask that witnesses try and hold their remarks to 5 minutes if they could. That'll make it possible for us to get most everyone in the questioning rounds. So we'll start with, as an individual, Jeffrey Booth, entrepreneur in Ottawa and author. Sorry, Jeffrey. Mr. Booth, go ahead. Floor is yours.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. These are obviously important times as a response to COVID and what the economic situation looks like in the future. But I'd like to talk about, before we talk about solutions, we really need to understand the problem we're trying to solve. And the inflationary economic system we've relied on all our lives is breaking down. COVID-19 only amplifies that phase transition. For some time, two opposing forces have been competing against each other, moving in opposite directions. Those forces are one, the exponentially deflationary aspect of technology, and two, an inflationary monetary policy that's trying to overcome it. And while we might not like those facts, it does not change them. Technology advances are sweeping across society. They've been hugely beneficial. Your smartphone you have is a compelling advantage, or a compelling example. It was only invented 13 years ago, but it is no longer just your phone. It is your camera, virtual assistant, map, music device, flashlight. For me, it's my guitar tuner, and hundreds of other applications that I pay very little for, or I get for free. More for less, and that gets better every year. That is the nature of technology. As technology accelerates from your phone across every industry, we can expect that type of step change in performance versus cost everywhere. Automotive, agriculture, energy, healthcare, it doesn't matter. It will reshape them all, and in doing so, provide far better outcomes for society at a dramatically reduced price. So if technology makes everything cheaper and more abundant, and it's moving into every industry at blinding speed, it is logical to assume that prices should go down and society should enjoy increasing benefits everywhere. The problem with that logic is the transition to deflationary. Is that deflation pressure makes it hard to pay debt back, and as a consequence, current economic dogma has us on a growth and inflation trajectory at all costs. In a desperate effort to achieve growth and inflation, which we hear about every day, in the face of a structural change brought to us by technology, central banks, not just here, but all over the world, through artificial low interest rates and monetary policy, have only added more pain. Incentives designed to make cash less valuable and encourage spending do just that. In doing so, they also discourage savings and encourage individuals and companies to take on additional debt and risk. Because of that, debt is being added to society at a rate that is really hard to comprehend. Since 2000, the world has added $185 trillion of debt to achieve $46 trillion of global growth per year. And each year, more debt is added to achieve smaller growth rates as technology pushes the other way. This was before our current crisis, which is seen an explosive rise in debt while the economy shrinks. In itself, that debt burden must slow future growth because taxes need to go up on a range of industries and households that will have to pay for it, which further restricts demand. Because that debt has grown so large, central banks and governments continually bail out the existing system, not by desire, but out of fear of letting the system fail and go through a disorderly unwind. It might be a better alternative than this and a set of bad choices. But by doing so, society is forced to run on a treadmill, requiring more work to support ever higher prices, which have themselves been inflated through monetary easing, artificial low interest rates, and bailouts. The devastating irony of the bailouts is that it artificially keeps prices high. Then the government then needs to allocate more to social programs for those left behind by the same high prices that they created in the first place. For the wealthy and those with assets that are artificially boosted by this leverage, it has played out well. Assets, including real estate and stocks, are the beneficiaries, having run up in value far beyond what they would have been without the easing. But for every person on the winning side of those decisions, there are many others on the losing side. Their costs of food, shelter, gas, education are rising because of policies designed to make their cash and wages less valuable. Paradoxically, COVID-19 actually speeds up the adoption of technology, and it is driving the trend to lower prices faster. Technology companies are the beneficiaries. Consider just one example, the system we're using right now, Zoom, going from 10 million users to 300 million users in just over 3 months. Those additional 200 million people might not occupy the same amount of real estate on the other side of this pandemic. If that happens, real estate prices would fall, as would rents, creating additional deflationary pressure. So we stand at a crossroads, similar to the one in 2008, only bigger, with calls for massive bailouts of taxpayer money to save the same system that was so clearly failing in the first place. Policy response is required and justified. There are too many people going to get hurt. But we need a new set of rules, one that starts with a far deeper understanding of the risks and using the same playbook that worked for a different time. Looking forward, productivity gains from technology advancements, especially in AI, will become so large that it'll be impossible for central banks to counteract their effect. By understanding the key structural change that technology has enabled, governments can step in and provide a transition to a very bright future for all Canadians. Not doing so is analogous to Kodak trying to retain their film business while competing against digital cameras, or Blockbuster adding candy aisles to their stores to counter Netflix. Massive money will be wasted, and it'll fail regardless. If that happens, more people in the end will be hurt. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Booth. Turning then to the Canadian Horticultural Council, Brian Gilroy, President, and Jan van der Hout, First Vice President. I imagine it's Mr. Gilroy?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to be here. And thank you to the committee members for working under these extraordinary circumstances on behalf of Canadians. My name is Brian Gilroy, and I am the president of the Canadian Horticultural Council, which represents Canada's over 14,000 fruit and vegetable growers, producing over 120 different crops. I am also an apple grower from Meaford, Ontario. As you can appreciate, our industry is very diverse. So too are the challenges we are facing in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. Certain subsectors in the fresh fruit and vegetable industry are facing very acute and immediate challenges. These are, some of them, potatoes and greenhouse vegetables, but I will defer to my colleagues to talk more about those specific challenges. I want to start off by saying that the CHC recognizes that the safety of Canadians and the integrity of our healthcare system remains the government's #1 priority. We appreciate the great efforts that government has made to keep us all safe, as well as the measures to keep our economy afloat during this difficult time. However, we are here today to point out, like most countries, Canada faces serious challenges on an issue that is essential to a strong healthcare system and a healthy population, and that is our national food security. We think this is an opportunity for the Government of Canada to continue to demonstrate how critically important our food supply and security is to Canada, and to underline that governments have farmers' backs, to paraphrase Francis. We are grateful to the federal government for its actions exempting international farm workers from travel restrictions. However, a number of obstacles have made the flow of critical workers untenable. Many farms will receive merely a portion of the workers they generally rely on. Without the guarantee of a reliable workforce, Many growers are making decisions now as to whether it is practical, let alone possible, to plant crops or tend fruit trees. Compounding these difficult decisions is the knowledge that they do not have a sufficient safety net behind them. Growing fruits and vegetables has significant input and overhead costs. Many growers just can't take on these costs without a guarantee that the risk will not push them into bankruptcy. Growers are not immune to risk and uncertainty. Year after year, they take on the risks associated with Mother Nature, pest infestations, and market volatility to make sure Canadians have an abundance of healthy fruits and vegetables. But in these extraordinary times, more than ever, they need concrete assurance that the government will have their back. The government has announced several measures, such as the emergency wage subsidy and the emergency business account. Unfortunately, many family farms will not meet the eligibility criteria. The $5 billion that went to Farm Credit Canada is not beneficial, as taking on debt will not help our growers recover or backstop their losses. We understand that business risk management programs are there with the intention of protecting farmers from disastrous losses, but cuts to these programs and changes to the eligibility criteria have rendered the programs, namely agri-stability, ineffective for most farmers. CHC and the CFA has outlined its recommendation to the Minister of Agriculture and the Minister of Finance for immediate changes to business risk management programs to help see farmers through this crisis. We have requested that the Ag Stability trigger be increased to 90% beginning for the 2020 program year, or more generally, the program year that covers the 2020 crop year for eligible horticulture farms, and that the program cover 85% of the losses below this trigger. To cover any immediate extraordinary costs for growers, CHC has also requested an immediate injection of a minimum of 5% of a producer's 2018 allowable net sales into agri-invest accounts, and waiving the requirement for the grower to match the contribution. This would help give confidence to growers in the short term. We have recommended that these emergency coverage measures should be coupled with the removal of the reference margin limit, and consideration be given to waiving the structural change provisions. CHC is prepared to work with Agriculture Agri-Food Canada to refine any of these recommendations and minimize the risk of any unintended consequences or moral hazard. Again, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all today. I look forward to any questions you may have, and I will now turn it over to my colleague, Jan Vanderhoef.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. And again, thank you for your service to Canadians. My name is Jan Vanderhout, and I am the Vice President of CHC, as well as a greenhouse vegetable grower from Hamilton, Ontario. As Brian mentioned, our sector is very diverse. While other crops are being planted in the ground and tree fruits are starting to bloom, our greenhouses are in production. The majority of greenhouse operations are in full swing across the country. While we grapple with other challenges associated with this pandemic, we have unfortunately seen how devastating an outbreak of COVID-19 can be on an operation. I'm sure most of you are aware of the situation at Green Hill Farms in Kent Bridge, Ontario. Despite taking all the necessary precautions recommended by public health, there has been an outbreak of COVID-19 among their full-time and temporary workers. Green Hill is now trying to salvage the harvest with a sliver of their regular workforce. The losses they will incur from this are not effectively covered under any business risk management program and could amount to as much as $25 million loss on this one farm alone. Simply put, we need your support for our growers to continue to take on these risks. We need to know you have our back as growers continue to serve on the front lines as essential workers. Canadian fruit and vegetable producers need assurances now that they should plant with confidence that in the event of a labor or supply chain issue caused by COVID-19, that they are not risking their farms. We want to avoid situations where Canadian growers are forced to conclude that the economic and other risks to continuing operations are just too great. Canadians will be relying on our domestic growers more than ever, and more than ever, our growers need meaningful safety nets behind them. As this committee examines ways to respond to this pandemic, we urge you to make our food security a top priority. The federal government needs to make it clear that any grower who needs to isolate workers due to an outbreak or has to scale back, shut down, or curtail operations temporarily will get the full support of the federal government during this pandemic. Canadian fruit and vegetable growers are part of Canada's ongoing food supply solution. Help us to help you feed Canadians. Thank you.
Thank you both very much. Turning to the City of Winnipeg, then Scott Gillingham, Councillor and Chair of the City's Finance Committee. Scott, floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. Good afternoon from Winnipeg. And thank you for the opportunity to be with you. And thank you to each of you, committee members, for the ongoing work that you do. To committee member of yours, Marty Morantz. And I do appreciate this committee's interest in how COVID-19 is affecting Canadian municipalities. I'll speak from my local perspective as Winnipeg City Councillor and Chairman of the Standing Policy Committee on Finance. In the 5 minutes allotted to me, I'll break my comments into three sections. First, the impact that COVID-19 is having on Winnipeg city services, on our city's financial response, and then on what senior levels of government can do to assist Winnipeg and other Canadian municipalities at this moment and in the wake of this pandemic. COVID-19 continues to impact City of Winnipeg revenues, expenses, and services. In keeping with Manitoba Health guidelines, the city has adjusted the service levels to help flatten the curve. All city-owned and operated recreation centers, pools, arenas, libraries, play structures, skateboard parks, athletic fields, and the like are closed to the public. Winnipeg Transit has instituted an enhanced cleaning program to help sanitize buses. Starting on Monday, May the 4th, transit service will be reduced across the city to an enhanced Saturday schedule. Transit ridership has dropped by 70% over the same time last year. Early numbers estimate a $6 million loss in transit this month. Our Assessment and Taxation Department and the Bylaw Enforcement Services have suspended all interior residential and commercial property inspections. Water maintenance, water meter inspections, removals and replacements, and on-site meter reading by city staff have been suspended. And with City of Winnipeg revenues down and expenses increasing in some departments, our burn rate currently is estimated to be at $12 million per month. To offer financial relief to property and business owners, City Council in Winnipeg adopted a plan to waive penalties for unpaid property and business taxes for up to 3 months following their due date. The lost revenue to the city for providing these financial support options is estimated to be $5.2 million. Let me move next to the City of Winnipeg's financial response to the impact of COVID-19. By mid-March, it had become apparent that the pandemic would impact the city's finances. So Winnipeg City Council asked our corporate finance team to provide economic modeling of the pandemic's potential impact and to develop a corresponding crisis cash flow management plan. That plan was developed and made public last week. The cash flow management plan centers on maintaining the city's liquidity and effectively addressing any deficits in the general revenue fund. And this will be achieved by a combination of financial levers to be pulled, including the reduction of expenses through service reductions and layoffs, the possibility of advancing the timing of planned debenture issuance, and a transfer from the Financial Stabilization Reserve as necessary. The cash flow plan has been set up with a series of financial levers that are categorized into 3 tiers, and I won't go into those tiers right now, but just suffice to say that Tier 1 levers have already been pulled or soon will be pulled. That includes a temporary layoff of 674 non-permanent community services staff and the temporary layoff of 250 transit staff, mostly operators. Tier 2 and 3 levers will only be used if the pandemic drags on. A final comment about the Winnipeg's cash flow management plan. I want to emphasize that we made the determination to proceed with the city's recently adopted 2020 capital program. The city's capital budget is set to invest $370 million in important projects. This investment will assist to stimulate the struggling local economy and is estimated to provide over 2,300 jobs. To make significant cuts to the city's 2020 capital budget would further exacerbate the challenges our local economy is facing. And this capital program will also provide significant taxation revenues for senior levels of government at this critical time. Which brings me finally to the topic of what senior levels of government can do to assist Winnipeg and other Canadian municipalities at this moment, and also in the wake of this pandemic. Right now, cities are facing significant financial pressure on our operating budgets. The federal government could assist municipalities with, first of all, cash funding that allows municipalities the discretion to direct those funds where needed, whether to operating or to capital budgets. Winnipeg supports the Federation of Canadian Municipalities' call for emergency operating funding for municipalities nationwide to keep essential services running and Canadians safe and supported. The federal government could also ensure that the flow of federal funds, whether operating or capital, does not get hung up nor slowed down at the federal or provincial level. If I may be so bold, the funds in existing federal programs for capital projects, for example, the Investing Canada Infrastructure program, need to flow to municipalities faster. In my experience, and I've been on council for 6 years, it takes too long for monies to get out the door and into the ground. By contrast, the federal gas tax program has been and remains an effective financing tool for municipalities as the funds flow fairly quickly. Looking ahead, in the wake of this pandemic, the federal government should see municipalities as vital partners in restoring Canada's economy. The City of Winnipeg, and I'm sure all Canadian municipalities, want to be key partners in reopening and recovering of our local economies. We're willing to work with federal and provincial governments to restore Canada's economy. My final comment is that the federal government could work with municipalities and provinces towards establishing a new, long-term, predictable, growth-oriented funding model for municipalities. Locally, for example, if the City of Winnipeg has base funding level certainty for present and future years from senior levels of government, it allows Council to plan the delivery of city services and capital investment with a longer-term view in mind. That, in turn, enables Council to provide a greater level of predictability to our residents and taxpayers and our funding partners on taxation, fee, and service levels for the coming years. Once again, I thank you for the opportunity that you've given me to provide comments today.
Thank you very much, Scott. Elizabeth May, you'd put your hand up. Did you have a point you wanted to make? Your mic, Elizabeth.
I wanted to ask a question of Jeffrey Booth, if that's all right.
We'll wait till we get all the witnesses in, and then we'll get you on later.
Thank you very much.
Okay, turning to Imagine Canada, Bruce McDonald, President and CEO. Go ahead, Bruce.
Monsieur le Président, membre du comité, je vous remercie de m'accorder.
I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to testify during this unprecedented time. Charities and NGOs, as well as social enterprises, are, like other sectors, seriously affected by the crisis. Organizations that have not been forced by physical distancing measures to temporarily suspend operations are challenged on numerous fronts. Revenues are declining. The demand for services has in many cases increased, even for organizations that are not on the supposed, quote, front line. And a program and service delivery have drastically changed to meet the new circumstances amongst these organizations. We polled charities on their experiences during the pandemic. We are still analyzing the results, but preliminary data shows the considerable impact COVID-19 has already had on the sector and will continue to have on the sector.
Report a drop in revenues, with the average organization's revenues dropping by 30%. This compares to the 08-09 recession, when less than a third reported revenue losses and the percentage loss was in the single digits. Nearly a third and more than half anticipate they need to lay off more staff, or begin layoffs where they haven't already. Almost half of charities report difficulty engaging volunteers because of reduced availability, significant programming changes, or the lack of personal protective equipment. And more than half of organizations anticipate their financial situation will further deteriorate over the next few months. At the same time, between 35 and 40% of organizations and almost half of larger organizations have seen increased demand for their services. To meet this demand, they've rapidly innovated and adapted. In-person sessions have, where possible, been moved online, and a surprising number of organizations, almost half, have actually developed new programs to meet demand, and this despite the serious challenges they face. To date, the federal government has invested a great deal in helping individuals, businesses, and organizations weather the storm. Many charities and nonprofits may qualify for the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, and some have been able to access the Canada Emergency Business Account. Neither of these, of course, is available to the almost 50% of organizations that don't have paid staff. It's too early to say how many might benefit from temporary rent reductions or the support the government has announced for arts, culture, and amateur sport. Rather troublingly, though, we've already heard from organizations whose landlords refuse to participate in the rent assistance program. Funds have also been announced to help organizations serving some of the most vulnerable Canadians. We appreciate the specific investments that have been made in organizations providing frontline services to the most vulnerable people and communities. But these measures aren't sufficient if we want to maintain the vital social infrastructure across this country. At the outset of the crisis, we engaged voluntary private sector expertise to work with us to estimate the impact of 3 to 6 months of physical distancing measures. We projected a financial impact of between $9.5 and almost $16 billion for registered charities alone, and layoffs between 117,000 and 194,000 people. As the crisis unfolds, those early projections are proving to be, if anything, optimistic, and the measures for which charities and nonprofits are eligible are unlikely to fill even half of that financial gap. What we need from the federal government are measures that address the unique characteristics of charities and nonprofits. I mean things like counter-cyclical demand for services, revenue streams that greatly fluctuate throughout the year, or the role that volunteers play. We also need a commitment to the social infrastructure in our communities, to the organizations that provide services that would otherwise fall to government. I want to focus on a proposal for an emergency grant program that we submitted to the government. This would see the government commit funds sufficient to preserve the sector. Eligibility would be based on organizational need rather than government picking winners and losers. Delivery mechanisms would prioritize speed in getting funds to organizations. We estimate that around $6 billion in emergency funding is still urgently needed. This may sound like a great deal, and in normal circumstances, we'd be loath to suggest such a number. But the cost of doing nothing is even greater. Canadians have spent generations building a sector that delivers services more efficiently and effectively than government, provides good jobs in every community, and contributes enormously to our quality of life. Take a moment to imagine your communities without charities and nonprofits, without the support for people with disabilities or chronic health conditions, without amateur sport, youth groups or other organizations for children, without food bank or services for poverty, without places of worship, without settlement services for newcomers, without museums, theaters, or cultural festivals, and I could go on. What would it cost us to replace what we might lose? Because that's what's at stake here. If we lose significant parts of the social and community infrastructure we've built up over generations, it will take years and far greater investment to rebuild it than it will take to preserve it today. So the government's yet to decide on our proposal, but as members of the Finance Committee, as members of Parliament, and as the voices in your communities, you can have an enormous impact on that decision, and I urge you to use that influence. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bruce. Right on the second. Migrant Workers Centre, Natalie Droulette, Executive Director and Staff Lawyer. Natalie, 5 minutes if you could.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. I'd like to wish you all a happy International Workers' Day. And it is fitting that I will be speaking about the impacts of the COVID-19 crisis on some of the most vulnerable workers in Canada, migrant and undocumented workers. I'm representing the Migrant Workers Centre, a nonprofit organization based in Vancouver. that is dedicated to legal advocacy for migrant workers. Established in 1986, the organization facilitates access to justice for migrant workers through the provision of free legal advice and representation, public legal education, law and policy reform, and test case litigation. Migrant workers grow the food that we eat and make sure that it reaches our shelves. They build our homes, schools, and workplaces and keep these spaces clean and safe. They take care of our children, the elderly, those who are sick, and those with disabilities. They are some of the heroes that we've been applauding every night. The healthcare workers and also the grocery store clerks, the cleaners, the care workers, the truckers, and of course, the agricultural workers. The COVID-19 crisis has shown us how these essential frontline heroes and the level to which our society depends on migrant workers to perform these low-wage jobs. In order for temporary foreign workers to apply for a work permit in Canada, the Temporary Foreign Worker Program requires that they must first secure a job offer, employment contract, and labor market impact assessment from a Canadian employer. This process can take anywhere from 7 to 12 months. They receive work permits that authorize them to work for a single employer in a single job and in a single location. If they lose their job, they have to start the process all over again. And in the meantime, they can't work. This system makes migrant workers uniquely vulnerable to abuse. They often face low wages, unsafe working conditions, and overcrowded housing. They don't speak up for fear of losing their job. The COVID-19 pandemic has only exacerbated their vulnerability. Our organization has heard from hundreds of migrant workers since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. These workers are at risk of becoming undocumented because of this crisis. And to date, Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada has failed to offer any solutions for migrant workers. We're seeing more temporary foreign workers losing their jobs, and they can't work because they have employer-specific work permits. These workers want to work. We have clients who are healthcare workers who want to be on the front lines of the crisis, but they can't. We have clients who want to work on farms, but they can't. Temporary foreign workers who are losing their jobs can't secure a new labor market impact assessment to renew their work permit. If a migrant worker has lost their job due to COVID-19 and still has status in Canada, they can apply for the CERB. However, if their work permit expires, they lose status in Canada and they become ineligible for the CERB. If they lose status, they are in an impossible situation. They can't work to support their families. They can't apply for employment insurance without status. They can't apply for the CERB without a SIN number, and they can't leave Canada. We've had numerous workers in this situation approach our office, and we've had to tell them that there are no viable legal options for them to work, renew their status, or for income support during this crisis. I'm now going to turn to my 3 recommendations. Number 1, during the pandemic, every worker in Canada should have equal access to the CERB and healthcare. Open up the CERB to people with expired SINs. Issue temporary SIN numbers to anyone who applies for the CERB. This can be done by suspending the requirement for a work permit in order to get a SIN number. All workers should be treated equally in our country, regardless of their country of origin or their immigration status. All workers impacted by COVID-19 should be able to apply for the CERB. Number 2, workers need an open work permit to be able to work in the jobs that are available during the pandemic and to maintain their status in Canada. Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada should automatically renew their work permits to an open work permit. Workers with secure status will be less afraid to speak up about any health and safety concerns in their workplaces, which will reduce the spread of COVID-19. Many COVID-19 outbreaks have been in workplaces that rely in part on temporary foreign workers. We've all seen the media reports about these continuing outbreaks. Number 3, Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada should create a new permanent residency program for migrant and undocumented workers and allow them to apply for an open work permit while they're waiting for their applications to process. Even though they are performing essential work that we as Canadians depend on, many of these workers have no way of becoming permanent residents of Canada. The only way to come out of this crisis is to do it together and ensure that no one is left behind. Migrant and undocumented workers are the heroes who are doing the dangerous jobs and putting their lives on the line for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Am I on? Yeah, I'm on. Thank you very much, Natalie. Two more witnesses to go to, then we'll go to questions with MTY Food Group Incorporated, Jason Brading, Chief Operating Officer.
Hello,
Jason.
everyone. Good afternoon. Happy to be here with all of you today, and thank you to the committee for listening to our concerns. MTY is a Canadian restaurant company operating some 7,000 franchise locations around the globe under many well-known banners, with over half operating here in Canada and proudly employing over 45,000 Canadians. As a franchisor of multiple brands, operating multiple styles of restaurants, from full-service dining rooms to quick-service takeout and everything in between, we are uniquely positioned to fully understand firsthand the impact COVID-19 is having on all manner of restaurant businesses during this pandemic. Of our 3,500 Canadian locations, nearly 2/3 are fully closed and have seen more than 20,000 employees.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chair. I think that we're having a problem with the sound. It seems to cut. Maybe we can start again to see if it's resolved. Now we had to stop interpretation.
Okay, Jason,
Sure.
just if you can speak maybe a little more clearly. Interpretation wasn't picking you up.
Sure. Let me know if it's okay. Of our 3,500 Canadian locations, nearly 2/3 are fully closed and have seen more than 20,000 employees lose their employment. Of the 1,400 that remain open and only being able to offer takeout and delivery to our guests, sales are down a dramatic 50%.
Just hold on, Jason. I see the clerk on the bottom of your screen there, Jason, where it talks about translation. Are you on the English channel?
I am.
Yeah. Just technical. The new way of doing things.
Understandable.
Okay, well, we're ready to give it a try again, Mr. Clerk?
We can try it again. I think
Okay.
that there was some issue again, but try again, Mr. Brading.
Try again and just give me a head shake if it isn't working, David.
Good.
Go ahead, Mr. Brading.
It is no secret our industry already functions on an incredibly tight profit margin, typically around 5 to 7%. And so no extravagant accounting is required to understand that without significant assistance, a majority of our small business owners are at serious risk of not surviving this pandemic. While the reopening date of dining rooms and shopping malls is yet unclear in most provinces, our focus today is to facilitate and promote a viable business case for our franchisees to reopen for takeout and delivery. For this to occur, we require governments to offer relief programs that will be flexible and accessible to as many restaurant owners as possible, but also extended beyond June to cover the months following the reopening of dining rooms and malls, where seating capacity will be restricted and traffic reduced. Canada's Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance Program, CECRA for short, while providing some hope to small business operators, is clearly too narrow a program, relying on voluntary landlord participation, who must have mortgages to qualify, which eliminates some of the biggest landlords in Canada who do not use mortgages as their financial instrument of choice, and equally punitive to those business owners trying to keep their doors open, who, while working hard every day, run the risk of creating comparable sales in excess of 30%, a threshold for disqualification of CECRA that is far too low in our opinion. We firmly believe that having small essential businesses open to the public with proper safety protocols in place, serving their communities, is the best possible scenario for all Canadians. Penalizing anyone who is making that effort every day is simply wrong and we ask that consideration be given to modifying the program so as to include these open and operating small business owners who manage through grit and determination to reach sales higher than the 30% threshold set today in SECRA, and to expand the qualifying criteria for landlords. Another key issue for companies like Tim Hortons and Subway and Recipe and many other franchising umbrella companies like our own MTY is the uncertainty of not having our franchisees qualify for the SECRA assistance because we risk being considered outside the criteria due to our combined sales exceeding the $20 million threshold. Individual subtenants should be qualified for SECRA, notwithstanding the size of their franchisor. The other principal issue at play, preventing our progress, are the different emergency response benefits being offered to Canadians. While we fully support and appreciate all the aid provided in this critical time, we also want this committee to be aware that we have experienced firsthand how the emergency aid can have the negative effect of keeping people at home rather than accepting available employment. While the decree of isolation was the cornerstone of flattening the COVID-19 spread, one we fully agree with and support, if we want to see our economy reopen, then we must recognize the negative aspect the emergency aid programs can have on Canada's productivity and its ability to move us economically past this pandemic. Conversely, however, extending the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy Program beyond the current cutoff date will encourage a swift return of staff to work and support the financial burden on restaurant operators in particular. In closing, we want to impress upon this committee the severe impact and fragile state our industry finds itself in today as a result of this pandemic. We respectfully ask the committee to seriously consider modifications to the SECRA program as outlined, and to closely consider extending the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy Program to encourage rehiring staff and financially supporting our small business operators for the benefit of our economy. Thank you for your time here today and the consideration of our concerns raised.
Thank you very much, Jason. And before I go to our last witness, the second Jason on the panel, just to give a heads up, in the first round of questions will be Mr. Polyev, Mr. Sabera, Mr. St. Marie, and then Mr. Julian. So we'll turn to the Prince Edward Island Potato Board, Jason Webster. Welcome, Jason. Floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Chairman Easter and honorable members. I'll just ask, is my mic coming in clear? Because I've hooked it up since we did our test. Looks good. Okay, thank you. I want to thank you for the opportunity to come to speak to you all today. My name is Jason Webster, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Prince Edward Island Potato Board today. Our board represents 180 plus potato farmers in our province, working together to ensure long-term profitability and sustainability, including financial and environmental sustainability of our industry. We work with other potato organizations in Canada and the US, including the Canadian Potato Council and the United Potato Growers of Canada and of the US, as well as other farm organizations here in PEI. The board asked me to speak today because we wanted to share with you a farmer's personal perspective on the impact of COVID-19 on our farm and our industry. I'll also share with you some comments on the federal government's response to the pandemic to date. I'd like to give you some quick background on myself and our farm. Our farm name is MWM Farms Limited. We operate here in Middleton, Prince Edward Island. Our farm's primary source of income is potato production, coupled with rotation crops of grain, peas, and mustard. We grow seed potatoes, table potatoes, and processing potatoes, with the bulk of our production in the processing sector. A little background on our industry. We'd be happy to provide more details on this, but in a nutshell, when COVID-19 hit, we went from a tight potato supply situation in North America to get through the rest of the marketing season to a nosedive in the demand for frozen potato products and fresh potatoes that normally move through restaurants and food service channels. As a result, processors advised farmers to move potatoes they had grown under contract for them to alternate markets if they could. Most of it could not find other market channels, but just the notion of that additional volume of potatoes suddenly becoming available to fresh markets puts a downward pressure on prices in that market. The same thing is happening all over Europe. Many of us were suddenly trying to figure out the financial impact on our farms. If those contracted potatoes were now worth little to nothing, on our farm, we currently have 17 million potatoes of contract in our warehouses that are worth over $2 million. We are also possibly looking at an environmental issue in terms of how to dispose of these 2019 crop potatoes, plus any plant health issues if tons of potatoes were being piled outside for disposal or livestock feed. At this point in PEI, we think we have a possible solution to our processing 2019 volume, which is good. Add into this a high level of uncertainty on the part of the processors and everyone else in terms of what the demand might be for the 2020 crop. Lots of major unknowns that impact the decisions we have to make on our farms late in the day when normally those cropping decisions are already made. We learned yesterday that our processor only wants to plant 85% of the volume we grew for them last year. That impacts us in several ways. We also grow seed potatoes, so we will need less of them to plant at the lower contract volume. Other growers we normally sell seed potatoes to are also cutting back their orders. So far, we have 500,000 pounds of seed that will no longer have a home with a value of close to $100,000. And on our farm, we will have to carry the fixed costs on a smaller acreage over our production base. That puts us at a financial disadvantage even before we plant the crop. In addition, who knows whether this pandemic will be over by this fall or in a year's time or even in 2 years' time. There's a lot to deal with, including our preoccupation with helping our families and our employees healthily and safely so they can get the crop planted, grown, and harvested while respecting all the public health advisories. It's been nerve-wracking and it's far from over. We were asked to comment today on the federal government response to COVID-19. There were positive measures, and I can share those with you later if time permits. Beyond those generic measures, there has been nothing specific to agriculture, and that's a major gap. We fully support the request made to Minister Babu last week by the Canadian Potato Council, including processing potatoes and storage. We're wondering about assistance on an urgent basis to deal with the 2019 potato crop that was contracted with Canadian potato growers for use in processing plants, but for which markets have collapsed due to the public health mandated closure of quick service restaurants and other food services resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic. The Government of Canada is urged to consider the purchase of a significant portion of the remaining storage inventory of both processing and seed potatoes and cover the disposal costs of these potatoes that cannot find a market. Assistance for seed growers. Given major reductions in 2020 processing contracts and acres planted, seed potato sales have been reduced or canceled. Seed growers are the foundation of our industry, and the loss of sales this late in the season leaves them with no opportunity to seek alternative markets. Improvements to the business risk management programs available to Canadian potato farmers. The government of PEI stepped up last week with respect to the Ag Stability Program. They announced that they will pay the provincial portion of the cost to increase the coverage level from 70% to 85%, and they will remove the reference margin limit. They are offering interim payments of up to 75% to get funding into producers' hands in a timely manner. As well, under the agri-insurance program, or crop insurance as we call it, they are offering a 10% discount on the producer's share of insurance premiums. The changes to ag stability and crop insurance are being done for both 2020 and 2021. We'd like to see the Government of Canada at least match these commitments. Consideration should be given to waiving the structural change provisions in the Ag Stability Program for farms in the 2020 and 2021 program years. If they have to reduce production acres as a result of the collapsed demand for processing potatoes, food service, fresh potatoes, and/or associated decline in seed potato demand. Support to help farmers survive production cuts. As I mentioned earlier, potato farms' business plans are built around growing a certain number of acres sustainably. Overhead costs must still be covered, even if operating costs can be reduced via reduced production. We ask that government recognize this negative impact and seek ways to help farmers stay in business so that they continue to produce food for Canadians once the pandemic has ended and demand returns to more normal levels. For farmers in this situation, of reducing production, could the Government of Canada also support them by covering the interest for those farms that they have to delay repayment of loans, whether the FCC, commercial banks, credit unions, and or trade credit? Or could the advance payments program become interest-free for the full $400,000 rather than just the first $100,000? And could there be extended repayment terms for the advance? While perhaps not as immediate financial impact, we would also like to urge Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada to conduct field research in 2020. It is currently on hold due to COVID-19, and we feel that AFC, like farmers, can find ways to get the job done while putting measures in place to protect themselves and their staff. COVID-19 has shown us how fragile the food system is in Canada and in the US, and decisions that are being made by farmers now in the midst of all this uncertainty will impact consumers in 6 to 12 months' time. Our government has provided assistance to many segments of the economy and to vulnerable Canadians to help mitigate the financial hardships arising from the pandemic. That assistance has been needed, and we're glad our government has done that. We need similar consideration for the potato and agricultural sector. Thank you all for the opportunity to address you today. We also thank you for the work you are doing on behalf of Canadians and our country in these difficult times. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jason. And we'll now turn to, we'll hold all the rounds at 5 minutes, I believe, to get everybody on. Mr. Polyev, do you want to start, please?
Yes. Can you hear me all right?
Yep, we got you.
All right. Thank you very much to all the witnesses. Mr. Booth, I want to start with you. I think you provided a very unique and interesting perspective. For the last several years, opinion leaders and bankers and government leaders have been telling us that the way to prosperity is through debt-financed consumption. Last week, we had an embarrassing testimony from the governor of the Bank of Canada, thankfully the outgoing governor. He is, as you might know, supported an unprecedented engorgement of debt-fueled consumption during his time as governor and encouraged governments to take on more debt in so-called good times, which runs counter to the Keynesian theory that you pay off debt in the good times to prepare for to have surpluses in the good times and then buffer yourself against the bad times. And I asked the governor if he could tell us what was the total debt of Canadian households, businesses, and governments in Canada. And he didn't know, which I found astounding for someone who, in his position, who is basically the top banker. You'd think he would know.
Really sorry to interrupt here, Mr. Polyev. I think that the sound is not loud enough for the interpreters. I don't know if you can speak closer to your mic. Sorry about this.
All right. So I just found it astounding that someone who's supposed to be our top banker wouldn't know how much debt we have. It turns out that it's over $7 trillion, which is 3.5 times the size of our economy. And that was before COVID-19. Mr. Booth, do you think now that the Bank of Canada is pumping over $300 billion of newly created money into our system, do you think that the Bank of Canada should be audited by the Auditor General when all of this is over to find out who benefited and who suffered as a result of the bank's decisions?
So I point this out because this is the same thing that happens in every company facing a structural change, right? It's logical that governments would be caught in the same loop. And so I don't have an exact suggestion on your question, should they be audited? But what I would say is it's going to be hard to understand that if you understand all the connections to what's actually happening. It's a structural break, and nothing that governments do by playing the old rules will solve it. And so it's easy to point fingers and everything else, but the best businesses do the exact same thing. When dealing with a structural break, they can't see that structural break and build to the future. They keep building to the past. So if you looked at all the economic models going back through history, they've never dealt with what we're dealing with going forward. So it's logical to think everybody that's sitting on top of that is sitting on top of the same problem. And all of the advice that people are getting is sitting on top of the same problem. So my recommendation, if I had a stronger recommendation, I would put together a group of people that can see where this is going into the future, different thinking that can help the transition, because pointing fingers at the past, that's already done. It won't solve it. We need to think about how do we use this as an opportunity to build a better future for Canadians.
Absolutely. And I think as we come out of the lockdown, we'll again hear the same voices telling us that we need to borrow more in order to consume more. But that's the problem that we're in now. We have the second highest debt to GDP ratio in the G7 when you take total debt as a share of our economy. Only Japan is worse. Even France and Italy, which have almost collapsed under their debt, have lower total debt to GDP than does Canada. And yet, when we come out of this, I guarantee you there will be those voices who say the only way forward is to pile more debt on the backs of our businesses, taxpayers, and consumers in order to, quote unquote, get the economy going. What that will actually do is make us more vulnerable for eventual rises in interest rates, which will impose incredible costs, unsustainable costs on our economy. So what would you say to those who are continually advocating debt as the solution to all of our problems?
It's worse than you think, is what I would say. It's because that additional debt is driving up asset prices to stratospheric levels, which is driving the break in our societies. And there's a whole bunch of people sitting on both sides of those. The people that have been enriched by that don't know that they've been enriched by that. And so they think it's because of ingenuity. And it's mostly because asset prices were artificially raised. And right. Then the government has to step in on the other side and protect all the people that we're driving into the ground through the same solutions. So what I repeat what I would say. I would say that this takes different thinking. Just like an entrepreneur doesn't go and build the exact same business. They think about where is that business going, and why Netflix is built and Blockbuster is destroyed is the same function. They don't go and build on top. And so there's a whole bunch of people sitting around the table getting advice. And I have tremendous empathy for a lot of the people asking for money right now on this call, because people are hurting. And if we don't do that, there's going to be more pain. But if we just paper over this, it is going to explode, and you're going to drive society to the breaking point.
Okay, we will have to end it there. Thank you both. We'll go to Mr. Sabera and then on to Mr. St. Marie. Francesco, your mic.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome on this Friday afternoon. So please stay safe, everyone. A couple of quick comments. First of all, I wanted to give a quick shout out. The finance minister this morning announced the appointment of Tiff Macklin to be the incoming Bank of Canada governor, and I think that's a fantastic choice. We have someone a lot of years of experience in the Department of Finance. Read an article this morning. He was known as the fixer during the 08-09 financial recession, and I can see this transition being a seamless one at this very unique and critical time in our financial history, in the world's financial history. Also wish to point out that Mr. Poloz, Governor Poloz, has done a fantastic job for Canadians, has done a fantastic job for our economy in fulfilling the mandate of the Bank of Canada, whether it's the inflation targeting at 2% and so forth, and also was an appointment by the former Prime Minister of Canada, Stephen Harper. Mr. Harper appointed Mr. Poloz, had faith in him to do that. Mr. Poloz was there in critical junctures of our economy, and I applaud him and I applaud his leadership during this crisis that we're entering into. Switching gears very quickly over to the city of Winnipeg. We know FCM, we know the cities out there, and I here live in the city of Vaughan, are facing some financial pressures. What would you like to see happen in terms of getting some relief done for cities? With the caveat, we know that the spring construction season is almost going to be largely behind us. So getting those shovels on the ground, if we can do it quickly, that's going to be a great solution But what would you advocate for and ask for to give cities relief, both long-term and short-term?
Well, thank you, Mr. Severa. Thank you very much for the question. I appreciate it. I think I'll maybe restate some of what I had said in the presentation as far as, an answer to your question. On the short term, cities are hurting right now financially, facing significant financial pressure. And I can only speak to the situation in the city of Winnipeg. So that's why we do support the Federation of Canadian Municipalities ask for some immediate relief for cities. Looking at the longer term, though, as you mentioned, getting shovels in the ground, one of the reasons that we made the decision at the City of Winnipeg to go ahead with our capital program in its entirety is because it will provide much needed jobs in our local economy, which is struggling like every other local economy. Yes. Further, we're facing a $6.9 billion infrastructure deficit. So the longer we delay that infrastructure investment, those prices just continue to grow. So we have needs that we have to meet. In the longer term, I think the two things I did say is that we look for the federal and provincial governments to continue to see municipalities as key partners in reopening the economy and investing in our economy. Yeah. And then finally, long term, just to say that this idea of establishing a new longer term predictable growth oriented funding model for municipalities is key as well.
Yeah, and I know how much our relationship, our government's relationship, whether it was last term or this term, has been phenomenal with the cities and FCM and all the comments coming out. In last year, we doubled the gas tax for cities, and I know they use those monies to invest wisely. And we need to continue to work with cities, whether it's infrastructure, the $180 billion plan we rolled out, and to continue to roll out. We need to get that money on the ground, not only for today, but in the future. Switching gears to the potato farmers. Here in the city of Vaughan, there are tons of restaurants. Unfortunately, all these restaurants are closed right now, and they use a lot of potatoes, and I know they use a lot of Canadian homegrown potatoes, of course. Are any of the programs? Because I'm not an agricultural expert, but I want to get it on record. Are any of the programs that we have implemented to help agri-food processors? Is that coming to assist the potato farmers? Or is there anything that we need to put on the radar screen of the agricultural minister that we can quickly do? Thank you.
Go. We need to go with the Hort Council. Go ahead, Mr. Webster, I guess. Yeah. Jason, push your button.
There we go. Yep. Sorry, just trying to get my microphone unmuted. Currently, the short answer, in my knowledge, is no. We don't have any specific one to do that. Currently, in our province, I mentioned in my speech that we have come up with a plan to try and delay try and get all of the 2019 crop processed, and that's a joint plan between our provincial government, our potato board, and our processors to process the product, put it into storage, cold storage. They've managed to supply that, and we're hoping to be able to use those potatoes up to have them ready for later. The real fear now, though, is that's great. For the rest of the country, though, I don't think that's quite so possible. There isn't that much cold storage available. So there's going to be a lot of potatoes that can't get processed. So we certainly need something to deal with that. And of course, our seed growers with product that just can't be processed or anything.
No, and as we can all understand, and I think everyone appreciates quite well, we're in a very, very unique circumstances and time. So anyone that you could have said, we predicted this scenario for potato growers or forever crop that individuals, farmers grow across Canada, is just a very unique time. Obviously, we are listening. We're listening quite concisely. Chair, do I have time or am I over?
You were at a time. I was just going to interrupt you. Mr. St. Marie and then on to Mr. Julian.
Oui, merci, Monsieur le Président. Donc, je tiens à remercier tous.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank all the witnesses for their very interesting testimony. My question is for Mr. Gilroy. And if Mr. Webster would like to add a couple of points on this, he is more than welcome to do so. Mr. Gilroy, you told us about the current suite of agri programs that exist through Ag Canada. We would like you to tell us specifically what the problems are, what kind of changes should be made, and in what way this is an emergency. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. The main program, there's production insurance, and some crops have access to it and some crops don't. We've got 120 different crops in horticulture, and certainly the greenhouse sector does not have access to crop insurance. And even if they do have access, labor shortage or labor issues are not an insured peril in almost all areas of the country. The main program for support is Ag Stability. And I believe it was back in 2013, the coverage level was reduced from 85% of 85% to 70% of 70%.
And I believe, Mr. Chair, that I will have to intervene. Once again, I apologize for this. We cannot interpret at the moment. Not sure what the issue is, Mr. Gilroy. I think it's because of the sound quality. Don't know how you want to proceed, Mr. Chair. Maybe we can try
Point of order, Mr. Chair. Point of order. Mr. Chair?
Yeah, sorry. Didn't have my own. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can I have a quick point of order?
Yeah.
I just wanted to speak to the interpretation branch. It's clear. I can hear the witness just fine. And I understood that when I was speaking earlier, the interpretation stepped in and said they couldn't hear me. In fact, I've had people message me since saying that my audio was fine as well. So I think the problem might be at the interpretation branch. I think the witness's audio is just fine as far as I can tell.
I think I'd have to go to David on it, but I think it's the getting through to translation. I think it's in the booth. Do you want to give us another little try there, Brian, and we'll see where we can go? You're on agri-stability levels.
Sure. So as I mentioned back in, I think it was 2013, the ag stability levels were dropped to 70% of 70%. And that makes the program unworthwhile, not usable for a very large percent of farmers.
I think that we still have the same problem, Mr. Chair, and I think that you pinpoint the problem. It's more in the booth. I can hear clearly the witness as well, but it's different when you're in the booth and you're an interpreter. And we cannot see you, Mr. Chair, at the moment. You could turn on your video.
Oh, I think, okay, there we are. All right, I'm hitting too many buttons too. Then does Jason Webster want to take a little stab at that question? They can hear you, Jason. On Gabriel's question, did you hear the translation?
I think so, yeah. Basically, I'll echo what Brian is saying. The Ag Stability Program is been reduced considerably for several years now. And quite frankly, it's extremely complicated and difficult to predict. And most farms like mine that are on a contract situation where we are at a steady level going across, we don't have the big ups and downs dips. So we don't have a whole bunch of years in a row where we can get our profit margin way up and then take a smash and get a payment. We're running at a low margin to start with. So then when something like this comes along and hits us, it may not take us to, probably won't take us down to 70% of where we already were, but we're already on the edge. And we feel like there's a lot of us out there and we're just as important to the economy as everyone else. You know, my farm operates with 10 people full-time year-round and 20 to 30 people in the seasonal times when we need more. And we just really like just to consider ways to make these programs more effective and try and target the people that need it. And
okay, we'll come back to you, Gabriel. We had a lot of fooling around over translation. Go ahead, Gabriel.
Oui, merci, monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for Mr. Vanderhoof. His sound quality hopefully will be better than that of his colleagues that will allow interpretation to go forward. Mr. Vanderhoof, will the current situation lead to a food shortage in the fall if nothing is done? Will a number of farmers decide not to grow new crops because they're afraid of not having enough hands to do the job.
Jan, go ahead.
So exactly how much that will impact the plantings is a little bit of an unknown. But currently there are already farmers deciding to reduce the amount of crop that they're putting in. And the crops that are being seeded today are the ones that are going to be harvested in 2, 3, 4 months. So lettuce seeds and broccoli seeds are being dropped. And without them being planted, that will certainly come out as a decrease in production in Canada. And this is really our concern on the timeliness around getting the modifications made to agri-stability, so that these farmers know that if things go wrong and they don't have labor force or they don't have market access, that they're not going to end up losing their farms over this.
Okay, thank you. We'll end that round there. I don't know if anybody is working on Brian's sound from the translation booth in case he gets asked a question again. I would point out in that discussion, because I doubt if Finance Committee members realize this, one of the problems with agri-stability is the wait time before you get a payout. That's a serious problem. We're in the situation in agriculture at the moment is you can't wait a year for a payment. The situation is immediate, just to point that out. Turning then to Mr. Julian and then on to Mr. Cumming. Peter? I don't see Peter on there. Peter Julian, are you there?
I could pretend to be him, Mr. Chair.
We may get you in for a question here. I don't see Peter, so we'll go on to Mr. Cumming and come back to, I don't know what happened to him. I don't even see him here on the screen. We'll go on to Mr. Cumming.
He's back.
Then there he is. Peter, you're on. Peter Julian, your mic.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I was kicked out. But glad to be back.
You're not coming through too clear, Peter. Speak up.
I was kicked out and came back in. So hopefully you can hear me now.
Yep,
and
okay.
I thank all of the witnesses for being coming forward today. And we certainly hope that your families are safe and healthy. My first questions are to Ms. Drolet. Thank you very much for coming forward today. You've raised real concerns about the impacts on migrant workers, undocumented workers. Jenny Kwan, a parliamentarian, has written to the Minister of Immigration. Daniel Blakey, another NDP parliamentarian, has written to the Minister of Employment. I've written to the Minister of Finance on this issue. These are very easy fixes, providing temporary SIN numbers or extending SINs so they don't expire, renewing work permits. These are solutions that are just common sense. And so I'm a little flabbergasted why the government hasn't taken action. Could you please tell us about how catastrophic the impact is on these workers themselves? And as you've identified, they're frontline workers often working in long-term care homes. And how catastrophic is the impact on providing health care and other supports to seniors and children? The fact that the government has not yet put in any sort of actions to actually assure that migrant workers, undocumented workers are provided for through the CERB or other means.
Mr. Lett. Go ahead, Natalie.
Yes, hi. Thank you so much for the question. There's no doubt that the impacts on individual workers who are our frontline heroes, who are the workers who are doing the work that is allowing our society to be able to access food and healthcare and clean buildings and workplaces during this pandemic will be impacted in a catastrophic manner if it's not possible for them to, for instance, have their work permits automatically renewed or be able to have their SIN numbers renewed or issued to them if their work permits have expired. As I mentioned, these workers are completely stuck in Canada. They cannot leave the country. They can't legally work if they've lost their job. If their work permit has expired, they can't get any kind of income support, whether it's the CERB or employment insurance. If they can't work or access any benefits, they won't be able to support their families. They won't be able to pay their rent or buy food. They are facing multiple and cascading crises on many fronts. In addition to that, it makes sense from a public health perspective to regularize workers' status whose work permits have expired. As I mentioned, if workers have secure status in Canada, they will feel more confident to come forward and report health and safety concerns at the workplace. They will report to their employers if they are feeling ill, and they'll take a day off work. If workers don't have status, they live in fear, and they may not come forward to report their own symptoms or to report health and safety concerns in the workplace. So as businesses reopen, we need all workplaces to be safe to reduce the spread of COVID-19. In addition, by allowing allowing migrant workers to renew their work permits and get status in Canada, these workers will enter the formal sector of the economy again. They will pay taxes and they will be able to access health care if required. They'll be able to go to the doctor if they do have any medical concerns. And so it benefits workers. It also benefits the economy and is important for our public health as well.
Very quick one, Peter.
Thank you. To Mr. Gillingham, Mayor Jonathan Cote, Mayor Mike Hurley last week talked about the impacts of the lack of supports for municipalities and particularly the transit system. If Winnipeg gears down on their transit system and there isn't federal aid forthcoming, how long is the impact in the long term on the transit system in Winnipeg, trying to rebuild those routes and trying to rebuild passenger usage?
Well, yes, thank you for the question. Yes, it all depends on how long the pandemic lasts. We believe we can gear back up. We've geared down, obviously reduced our service, but depending on how quickly the province reopens and how quickly universities get back in session, businesses get back up and running, we will meet the transit demand. So we're watching that and monitoring that very, very closely.
Okay, sorry, we have to end it there. Mr. Cumming and then Ms. Zerowitz. James?
Great. Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all our witnesses today. I want to start off with Mr. Booth. You've been involved with a lot of different businesses, very entrepreneurial in nature. I know that you're a member of YPO, I see too. And I want to get your opinion or your thoughts around what everybody's talking about as a restart. What are you hearing from your business colleagues after when they're allowed to reopen? Is it business as usual, or do you see that they'll be looking for different ways to operate their businesses, lower their costs, and behave differently? Because that's a lot of what I've heard from business people.
Your mic.
Yeah, that's why this is going to be a lot longer recovery, and it's going to drive the technology trend faster. So if you connect the dots to everything that's happening, it changes business radically. This is not going to be a V-shaped recovery. People, even if you open restaurants again, people are not going to go into them at the same rate. They're not going to travel at the same rate. The impact to what this looks like on business and how business changes as a result. And that's actually why the driver to technology is so fast, because the companies that are driving to technology faster get more of the gain. So and there's a whole bunch of wins in that as well. So just about every company I'm involved with, I'm chairman of 5 of them, co-founder of a number of others. They're actually seeing records right now, massive growth, massive opportunity. But why I wrote the book, The Price of Tomorrow, is for this reason. If our economic system doesn't change, then the winners are going to be less and less. We can still create winners, right? There's lots of excitement about where that's going, and but the change in society, if you add that up over across economies, it changes radically. So this will not be a V-shaped recovery.
Great, thank you for that. Actually, I heard someone use the term now, new economic term, tub-shaped recovery, at how slow it may be off the bottom. Mr. Brading, I'd like to go to you about the rent subsidy program. I've been hearing from a lot of landlords that the one of the major flaws with this program is the tenants having to pay 25% of their rent and landlords picking up 25% of the rent. And the difficulty with that is landlords already are suggesting that they're picking up common area costs, utility costs, and in many cases, the businesses, because they've been closed, don't have the capacity to pick up the 25% rent. What are you hearing from franchisees and other people when they've heard about how the program was introduced?
Thank you for the question. We would be very happy to pay 25%. Our franchisees would be very relieved to hear that they could pay 25%. The reality is most landlords out there are not committing to the program. Many are disqualified by it, not having mortgages. Others, franchisees, are above the 30% threshold in sales, which makes a lot of them ineligible for CECRA. As a franchisor, we would help our franchisees meet that 25% requirement if they were a restaurant that had been closed 100% during COVID. That's a manageable amount for companies to work with. I'm sure independent restaurants who have been closed completely might feel differently here. But some help is better than none. And so I think that would be satisfactory. I think what you see out there and what we're hearing, franchisees and restaurant companies are happy with CECRA if we can open up the eligibility. Landlords are not jumping on board as quickly. They do not see the benefit of giving up 25%.
Okay. And then on the wage subsidy program, what would your recommendation? I know you want to extend it, but how do we make sure that this it doesn't become a dependency? Because labor is a variable cost within to the businesses. So how do we make sure that there doesn't become a dependency on that? Any suggestions on that?
Well, it's a fair question. We have the same concerns with CERB and the student aid that goes out. We hear often we have restaurants ready to open with no staff. The reality is, and it's unfortunate, some staff are making just as much money by staying at home. That's a reality. We do not want to take aid away from anybody. It's a difficult decision the government has to make when it comes to deciding who gets and who doesn't get help. And not one that I envy personally. But CEW, I think, has to be in place until we see the general economy start to pick back up. When we see that we can have dining rooms with patrons in them. It was mentioned on this call that dining rooms will be empty for the short, medium term. I happen to agree with that assessment. Food courts and malls will be quite empty for the short, medium term. And I think until you see those segments of the restaurant business start to show some health, the CEW will be a necessary aid for restaurant operators to stay open.
You're muted, Chair.
Thank you, guys. We will have to end it there. I would say to Mr. Brading, we have heard the same from the tourism sector. That it's just when they get rolling, hopefully, for a smaller season, that the wage subsidy will be gone. So they've asked it be extended too. We'll see where that ends up at the end. We'll go to Ms. Zerowitz and then on to Mr. Morantz. Julie?
Thank you so much. And I just want to say a huge thanks to all of the presenters. These were excellent presentations. And I'm only sorry that I have only 5 minutes to ask questions, since I have questions for all of you. The first one is going to be directed to Ms. Drolet. you have mentioned that of the migrant workers, they have work permits, but they're tied to one job, and many of them have been laid off due to the pandemic. And they're often in areas that are essential services. So whether, I think you mentioned agriculture, I think you mentioned healthcare. And so I want to ask you the question, it seems a little odd that at a time where they're essential areas that they would be laid off. Can you just clarify that for me? You have to unmute yourself. Yes, thanks.
Yes, thanks. Thank you for the question. Well, we've seen a lot of workers being laid off in the home care sector, particularly if their employers themselves have been laid off and are now at home and able to take care of the individuals that those home care workers were taking care of previously, or if employers are working from home, right, and are able to sort of share the responsibilities for taking care of a child or a person with a disability or a medical condition at home. We're also seeing layoffs, of course, in the restaurant sector and in the tourism sector. So we know that there are a lot of migrant workers who've lost their jobs in those sectors, but they are interested in contributing, continuing to contribute to Canada in some way, and are inspired to work where there are labor shortages, such as on farms, or some of those workers might have a background in healthcare and could utilize that during the pandemic.
So here's the other question I have for you. You had mentioned that when if a work permit has expired, then they don't have a choice. They can't work anywhere, and so they become sort of non-status here. My understanding is that if there was an application for renewal of the work permit that was expiring, so if the application put in before March 15th, there's an implied status that the work permit actually is renewed. Did you know that?
Yes. So in order to renew a work permit, a worker actually has to have all of their ducks in a row. So they have to have a new job offer, a new employment contract, and a new labor market impact assessment from the employer. So there are some workers who are on implied status and waiting to change jobs. There are also workers who were on implied status waiting to change jobs, and their employers who were hoping to hire them have told them perhaps that the job is no longer available. So we're seeing that in, of course, the restaurant sector, the tourism sector. So for these workers who, were not able to submit the applications to renew their work permits, or who have done so but lost, the offer of employment, they are also stuck.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to pivot and I'm going to stay on this topic, but I'm going to pivot over to Mr. Gilroy over at the Canadian Horticultural Council. Mr. Gilroy, you had mentioned that, many farmers will only get a portion of the labor that they need. My understanding is that there were plane loads of migrants that were actually brought in to help support farmers. Is it that we didn't bring in enough? That's one. Two, was this a labor issue we had before the pandemic and it's actually exacerbated now? And then three, I'm assuming that there haven't been layoffs on farms, to Ms. Drolet's comment about for migrant workers, just because I'm assuming that they're much needed. So if you could just respond to that, because it seems like on the one hand we have some labor, but in other areas we don't.
Thank you for the question. You're absolutely right. In some sectors of agriculture, floriculture, for example, that business has been hit dramatically hard, and some of those workers have transferred to other farming operations. So to the best of my knowledge, anybody who has come into the country to work in agriculture, if that position was needed to be closed, that another job has been found for them. Mm-hmm. As far as the percentage of, just recently I saw some information that 85% of the workers have arrived that would normally arrive at this time. But for some growers, they haven't received any of their workers. Mm-hmm. And there are processing challenges that have made it extremely difficult. I know that in Quebec, they use a lot of Guatemalan workers, mm-hmm. and I believe flights are just starting now. And workers were hoped to be in the fields a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. So The challenge is great.
Okay, thank you all on that point. And just for Julie's information, we had a lot of workers from Jamaica turned back by a decision of the New Brunswick Premier this week, which puts New Brunswick in a bad position. Turning then to Mr. Morantz and on to Mr. Fragascatis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Then Elizabeth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My questions will be for Councillor Gillingham, Chair of Finance at the City of Winnipeg, a position which I once held. Just for disclosure, I know Councillor Gillingham very well, and he's doing excellent work at the City of Winnipeg. Councillor Gillingham, you had mentioned in your presentation that you took the responsible path by asking corporate finance to implement a crisis cash flow management plan. And you started off by talking about the first tier, but I'm wondering if you could elaborate on what the rest of the plan is in terms of dealing with the cash flow crisis.
Well, thank you for the question, Mr. Morantz. There are 3 tiers in the cash flow management plan. In the first tier, there's a series of measures, levers that we have already pulled, including reducing discretionary spending. I mentioned the temporary layoff, unfortunately, of 675 community services staff and 250 transit staff. We've also implemented a freeze on the acquisition of fleet. We're looking at a hiring freeze for the remainder of the year as well. There are other levers that we're about to pull soon if necessary, and that's replacing our cash to capital funding with other financing, perhaps transferring unallocated equity from our land operating reserve. And one of the other things we're looking at is the possibility of advancing our planned debenture issuance timing, which we're looking at probably doing in the fall. We may move that up if necessary. However, if we wanted to do that right now, the markets are not open should we want to do that today. So then there's levels 2 and 3. There's other tiers, and that gets into extending our line of credit and some other measures which we would look at possibly more reductions of service across the board.
Well, thank you very much. And I know just before the crisis hit, you had been working on getting the first ever multi-year budget, balanced budget plan passed, and it just passed before the crisis hit. And I'm wondering if you could talk about how that's positioned the city to weather the storm better than most.
Well, thank you for that question. Yes, Winnipeg did this year adopt our first ever multi-year balanced budget, where we've balanced 4 operating years. Up to this point, we've only balanced our budgets on an annual basis. Of course, municipalities are required by legislation to balance our budgets. We cannot run deficits. And so we followed what several other Canadian cities have done in balancing multiple years. And to your point, Mr. Morantz, that has, I believe, really positioned the city much better to weather the financial storm of the pandemic. Had we not done the difficult work of balancing several operating years, we would right now, not only would the city of Winnipeg be facing the crisis in our cash of the impact of the pandemic, we'd also be staring down the face of a $120 million deficit for 2021 that we would have to balance. So I think the timing has been somewhere between fortuitous and prescient to have this multi-year balanced budget, and I think it does put us in a much better position to effectively manage the crisis we're facing.
Well, thank you for that. And I just want to touch on one additional point. And contrary to my colleague, Mr. Cervera, on the $180 billion ISA plan, that program is riddled with problems. In fact, Parliament voted a couple of months ago to have the Auditor General audit the whole program, because the parliamentary budget officer asked for information on it, and there was no information available to the parliamentary budget officer. My recollection is that the last major capital projects are going to be fundamental to helping cities and Canadians come out of this crisis. The last major capital project funded in Winnipeg, there were 2 of them, both funded before this Liberal government took power in 2015. So I'm wondering where the $180 billion missing dollars actually are, because there hasn't been a single major capital project announced in Winnipeg, intergenerational project announced in Winnipeg since 2015. That's 5 years. So I'm wondering if you could comment on your frustrations in accessing federal infrastructure dollars.
Well, I did mention, one of the things the federal government could do is to assist in expediting the money, speaking just very plainly, getting out the door and into the ground at the municipal levels. You do mention there are 2 major projects that were that did come on stream, the bus rapid transit in Winnipeg and the wave of the underpass, those were both under the previous government. There has been under this current federal government, and we're much appreciative of that, an accelerated regional roads program that has been announced, a tripartite federal, provincial, city governments all participating in that funding, and that's been very important, and that's running right now as well. But we do right now have two. We have an application in on the ISIP program for 4 projects within the city of Winnipeg. The bulk of them are related to a North End sewage treatment plant that has to be upgraded to meet provincial licensing requirements. And so we do hope, obviously, for assistance and funding partnership from both the federal and provincial government. But I just repeat, I end with this repeat, that we need to see those monies flow from those programs much more quickly.
Okay, well, that ended there. Sorry, Marty. We will go then to a single question from Miss May, then Mr. St. Marie, and then Mr. Julian, all singles to try and get everybody in. Elizabeth May, your mic.
Mr. Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, sorry, I forgot you, Peter. You're next. Sorry, my mistake. You got 5 minutes, Peter.
I will not take it personally ever, Mr. Chair. You're a great guy, and no problem. Mr. Chair, if Mr. Morantz is worried about infrastructure spending in Canada, I would just direct him to the testimony given by a former Conservative MP, Ed Holder, now the Mayor of London, Ontario, as you know, Mr. Chair, who spoke quite eloquently to our committee about infrastructure spending and how it's benefited London, Ontario. Certainly want to see infrastructure utilized by the government going forward as we engage in the economic rebuilds. But I would like at some point, Mr. Chair, to compare this government's record since 2015 on infrastructure and programs actually completed to the Harper government's record on infrastructure projects completed. And those numbers exist. The gap is enormous. And Mr. Morantz can and the entire Conservative members on the committee can consult the record on that. But I digress here, Mr. Chair. I do want to focus on COVID-19. My questions are for Mr. McDonald and the not-for-profit and charity sector. Thank you very much for the work that Imagine Canada is doing, Mr. McDonald. We have Pillar not-for-profit, in London, Ontario, as you know, and its executive director, Michelle Baldwin. Not to mention countless charities and not-for-profits in the City of London. You said something there that was quite poignant, I think, when you asked all of us to imagine what our communities would look like without not-for-profits and without charity organizations. I certainly do not want to imagine my city without charities and not-for-profits. They do fill important services. They carry out vital services that government simply isn't capable of carrying out. With that said, I do want to ask you about the figures that you've presented. So my understanding is that you're asking for around $10 billion. You gave us a projection of between $9.5 billion and $16 billion is the projected loss over 6 months. Is that correct?
That's for 2020 revenues.
That's for 2020. Okay, so you're asking for in and around $10 billion. I'm just seeking clarification on how that figure was arrived at, and more to the point, how would those funds be distributed exactly? What exactly would those funds go towards? How would they be spent?
Yeah, so in terms of how the figures were calculated, together with a private sector volunteer, our chief economist sat down and took a look at total revenues for the sector in 2020 or in previous years, and then started to assign some assumptions based on the revenue lines that this sector sees. And then we tested those assumptions with charity leaders. I mean, we know right now that special event revenue is almost gone by 100%, because those that had events in March, April, May, et cetera, even into June, have had to cancel it, and those revenues not only are gone, but in many cases, the organizations have to pay for the costs. So this was a sort of a methodological. We're happy to send the calculations for that, but they provided a pretty good snapshot. It was done early, and as I said, we think they may be a little bit a little bit optimistic at the time. And sorry, what was the second part of the question? You had the first part was around the methodology.
Sure. Yes, and if you could provide that methodology, that would be quite helpful, I think. The second question was, how would the money be spent?
Sure. So I think it's important to acknowledge that the initial $10 billion stabilization fund ask, we've subsequently removed the $2.5 billion, which would be the estimate that we have for the contribution of the emergency wage subsidy program and some of the other targeted investments. So the ask is now sitting around $6 billion. That would be in the form of grant. And we're proposing 3 delivery systems. One is organizations that have existing relationships with the federal government access those conduits. 2, look at organizations who have a core capacity in granting. Those like United Ways or community foundations who can deliver with speed. And the third are national federated bodies. So ones who already know their local communities the best, already have a core competency in doing flow-through dollars. That way those monies can get to the local communities as quickly as possible so that charities can keep the doors open.
Last question for you, Mr. McDonald. How do we avoid federal dollars going towards charity and or not-for-profit organizations that prior to the crisis simply were not operating efficiently, probably would not have had much of a future? I've put on record what I think of not-for-profits and charities, but there are organizations out there that have not been well managed. How do we avoid throwing good money after bad, so to speak? What safeguards has Imagine Canada proposed to the federal government to avoid this from happening? And could you elaborate on those safeguards here?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think it's important to note that the accountability in the charitable sector is actually quite high. First of all,
No, I understand that. I appreciate
I think it's an important point to make because I don't want there to be an inference that the charitable sector is not professionally or well managed. And so whether it's reporting to government on an annual basis or having community volunteers on boards of directors, our standards of accountability are high. And in fact, Imagine Canada operates a standards program where we accredit charities. I think one of the benefits, though, of having the kinds of delivery system that we are proposing is that those organizations and funders know the community organizations the best. It's basically impossible to have one metric to determine the worth of any organization, which quite frankly has been frustrating for society to use cost of administration as the sole determinant of worth. But if you are empowering a community foundation to grant to organizations it already knows, it has a pretty good sense on these things. So the
sorry, guys,
it's built into the mechanism.
Okay, we'll have to end it there. We'll go to 3 single questions, and then we'll probably have to close. Elizabeth May, you had one, and then we'll go to Gabrielle, and then to Peter.
Tough to ask one question, but Jeffrey Booth, your book on the price of tomorrow seems to me to have been way before the pandemic, arguing that this was a global problem, that we have to embrace deflation. You're the ultimate iconoclast of any finance panel I've heard, and that in that context, everything's going to cost less. We have to embrace it. It changes society. AI is coming at us. What's the role of social programs, and do you favor a guaranteed livable income?
I think you're going to need social programs to make this transition, and I do favor support for social programs, but not pretending. Again, governments can't stop this with monetary policy. It's coming anyways. By not recognizing it, you make the problem worse. You just tax people on the top. People think they got a gift, and then you have to tax them more for social programs. John Maynard Keynes wrote in his 1930s essay that we'd be working 13 hours right now. The reason why we haven't followed the progression of technology down is because we're on a hamster wheel, falling asset prices up, and both sides of government, and this is not their fault. Both sides are talking about the same system instead of a systematic change. And they're yelling at each other on both sides of the aisle, and it's creating more and more division through society out of that yelling because they're missing the fundamental point. Technology makes everything cheaper. We're asking the wrong question. How do we support more jobs? So even this, I just heard about the infrastructure projects. Awesome. Why infrastructure projects? Because you get a longer term GDP gain, and they've always worked to get people back to work, and produce a longer term GDP gain because roads were faster, right? People would shorten their commute time, and you'd get a longer term GDP gain. Today, the superhighways of the future are all digital, right? So the faster roads are the ones that we're on right now, Zoom, right? The faster roads. And so without recognizing that, the money is going to go into the wrong areas, and we're going to make the problem worse.
We are going to have to, Elizabeth's pretty neat. She gets one question but puts three in the one, something like Peter Julian does as well. Gabriel St. Marie, you're on.
Oui, merci.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll try to ask one question. For Mr. Vanderhout, regarding temporary foreign workers, is it correct to say that there are a number of bureaucratic obstacles that are still being faced despite the crisis and the urgency of having access to that labor force? Thank you.
Jan?
Yes, so there is a bureaucratic hurdle, and a lot of it's got to do with the things that are going on in the source countries. The workers need to go through biometrics in Mexico, for example, and then they need to get a visa before they can travel. This has been ironed out to a large degree. That is very much the case in Mexico. Unfortunately, Guatemala is still a bit of a challenge, although it is starting to open up. I wanted to say earlier, I was expecting 13 workers in the month of April, and I received 4. So although many workers have been coming in, there is quite a backlog. There's quite a delay.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Julian.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. My question is to Mr. McDonald. I should say I find it a bit rich that government members are pressing charities and nonprofits to make sure every cent is well spent when the federal government is shoveling money at the banks and is saying if you're indulging in overseas tax havens, you're still eligible for corporate bailouts with public money. So I think that's a bit rich. It's an important comment. My question to you, Mr. McDonald, is very simple. If the charity and nonprofit sector does not receive the $6 billion, what is the impacts? And with that money, what is the actual positive ramifications for the Canadian economy and Canadian society?
Well, thanks very much. I think it's important to note that we are predicting that the sector, there's going to be organizations that don't reopen. This funding that we're asking for is critical to recognize the unique differences in the revenue models. So for many organizations, I mean, there's this difference between deferred and destroyed revenues. This isn't just a matter of deferring revenues coming in. $1 million gala, a $500,000 gala that's been canceled means that organizations are operating, many of them, with skyrocketing demand. And I think it's interesting that many of the comments from people here today means that when their sectors are under stress, they're coming to the charitable sector for support. You know, we're seeing domestic abuse cases rises because of social distancing when people are now told to stay home. We're seeing mental health cases rising because of the challenges of these times. And so this funding is intended to recognize and help to make sure that the sector is positioned for recovery and that those critical services, which are growing in demand, are there for people as the private sector recovers, because we are also thinking that it's going to be a bit longer for the charitable sector to recover.
Okay, thank you. We are going to have to move on because we will have another panel. Just a couple of points. Mr. Brading, you had mentioned the impact on franchisees. I got some complaints from many actually. They operate as independents to a great extent, but they don't qualify for programming. Do you want to expand on that a little bit? Am I right or am I wrong?
Yes. So in SECRA, there's a couple of criteria that would negatively affect a franchisee who works under an umbrella corporation like ourselves. So the biggest and the most obvious is that they're our subtenant. And so we really are the lessee and they are our subtenant. So if we are considered as the lessee, because of the size of our company and the only 50%, I say only, only the 50% decline in sales, they all would not qualify. And we're talking about thousands of sublessees. If they're considered as their own entity, as they should be, they would then qualify. They're under the $20 million threshold. A vast majority are under the 30% threshold. And so they would absolutely qualify, but we're concerned that if they're considered as part of our company, that they would be excluded unfairly.
Okay, thank you for that. And I do know PI, Potato Marketing Board, Canada Hort Council, I know you've sent letters to the Minister of Agriculture. I've seen them. Could you send a copy of that correspondence to the clerk as well so it can be distributed to committee members? It is a little unusual for finance to be meeting with so many different sector groups as we are now, but we are operating under a mandate, under a House motion that basically says for us to deal with COVID-19 issues, and that certainly involves a lot of sectors we don't normally meet with. So if you could do that, please. With that, then I will thank the witnesses on behalf of the committee. Thank you for taking the time, giving your presentations. I think clearly tell you that your points will be well considered, will be taken up the line as we try to deal with the issues that this pandemic is causing us all. So with that, we will suspend for a couple of minutes and allow the clerk to test the microphones of the new witnesses. So for committee members, we'll suspend for a couple of minutes. For official purposes and to start the audio feed, I'll officially call the meeting to order and certainly welcome everyone to meeting number 24, the second panel of today of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Finance. We are operating under order of reference of Tuesday, March 24th. The committee is really meeting on the government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. I'll not go through any more formalities than that to save time. I do just want to say to witnesses, welcome. Thank you for coming. If you could, we'll try and keep the presentations as close to 5 minutes as possible so we have more time for questions. So we will start with the Canadian Airports Council, Joyce Carter, President, and RJ Stenstra, VP. I expect it's you, Ms. Carter. Your mic is, you got to unmute your mic, Joyce. I do it all the time.
Thank you so much. So, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to present to you today. As was mentioned, my name is Joyce Carter, and I'm chair of the Canadian Airports Council, but I'm also president and CEO of Halifax International Airport Authority. And I'm joined today by RJ Stenstra, and RJ is our vice chair, as you mentioned, but also president and CEO of the Fort McMurray International Airport. So it's nice to see some familiar faces that have joined us today on the committee. Hello to everybody. You might recognize behind me what is a very empty departures hall at Halifax Stanfield. And we would normally see 200 travelers a day. And today, we would normally see, 11,000 travelers a day. And today, on average, we see just 200. So certainly Canada's airports have seen a significant drop in their passenger traffic. And we are an essential part of our transportation network. Airports enable economic development in communities large and small. They facilitate trade and immigration, and they bring visitors to Canada's $90 billion tourism sector. So we connect Canada to the world. Pre-COVID-19, Canada's airports supported nearly 200,000 jobs, resulting in $13 billion in wages and $7 billion in taxes to all levels of government. Along with our airline partners, Canada's airports have seen a tremendous drop in traffic and revenue since the crisis began. In fact, in April, passenger traffic is down by more than 90% from normal levels. And while we are preparing to restart some of our operations as travel restrictions get lifted, we don't expect recovery in our sector for many years. The passenger flights that are still operating today are quite empty. And some communities like St. John, New Brunswick and Prince Rupert, BC have lost scheduled passenger service altogether. So you can appreciate that this situation is not sustainable. It's important to remember airports must remain open to safely move goods and essential workers and facilitate medevac and other important services to Canada's economy and recovery. Airports moved quickly to help with the repatriation of Canadians and then to reduce our operating expenses, including closing sections of our facilities, like you see behind me, and cutting wages and cutting staff. But many of our costs are fixed. Costs related to safety, security, and runway maintenance, for example, cannot be cut in proportion to reduced traffic. In fact, while Canada's airports anticipate revenue for the year to be down almost 60% of what we expected to see, costs cannot be cut by nearly as much. We want to thank the government for ground lease rent relief. For the 22 airports that this is applicable for, this initiative is helping preserve some cash flow in 2020, particularly for Canada's 8 busiest airports that pay 95% of the rent. Airports must also continue to meet their capital debt obligations, and with little or no passengers, the airport improvement fee that typically covers these costs has vanished. And managing airports is more than just about passengers. We must maintain buildings, runways, taxiways, lighting systems, and other services that are all part of what makes the airport operations safe and efficient. We must also conform to ongoing regulatory changes related to runway safety and accessible air travel with price tags in excess of $350 million.
We do not oppose these requirements, but we do wonder how we'll pay for them based on our current financial situation. Boosted funding for smaller airports through the Airports Capital Assistance Program and new funding for safety and security through the National Trade Corridors Fund would be helpful. But infrastructure funding is really a long-term solution to help airports recover over the coming years. Airports are struggling now to cover their costs based on severely reduced revenues. Over the past few weeks, we have seen positive discussions with officials from transport and finance about a series of measures to help airports of all sizes sustain operations in the coming months. Permanently eliminating airport ground lease rent would be very helpful, given recovery of our industry is expected to be slow and arduous, and there is a good chance that we will see a second or third wave. This would allow airports to preserve cash, focus on operations during the recovery, and pay off incremental debt acquired during the pandemic. Loan or bond guarantees and preferred payment designation for airport lenders would relieve the cash pressure caused by current debt obligations and allow airports to continue to borrow at favorable rates. Additional debt and interest would have to be repaid, and airports are concerned about what this will do to future rates and charges to airlines and to our shared passengers. This is why interest-free, longer-term loans would provide much-needed cash without unduly burdening future customers who ultimately have to shoulder any additional costs placed on the industry. The financial model for Canada's smallest airports is barely sustainable at the best of times. But for many rural and remote communities, these airports provide the primary means for access to people and goods. For smaller airports, a funding stream to cover essential operating expenses would be tremendously helpful, so they can continue to connect their communities to much-needed goods, workers, medical supplies, and emergency services. The health of the entire air transport system is not only essential to serving communities and Canadians through the crisis, but also key to our economic recovery once we begin to reopen the economy. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to the questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Carter. We'll turn now to the Canadian Association of Oil Well Drilling Contractors, March Schultz.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and to the rest of the committee for the opportunity to be here today. I represent Canada's drilling and well servicing contractors from across the country. These are the hardworking women and men who help produce the energy Canadians rely on every day. Since 2014, over 200,000 Canadians in our industry have lost good paying, long-term jobs. From the seismic crew to the drilling rig floor to the supply warehouse. And for the past 6 years, consistently, many Canadians have been losing their careers, their livelihoods, and their small businesses. In the drilling and well servicing sector alone, over that same period, we have lost 22 companies and nearly 600 rigs. These companies are the backbone of rural communities in many Canadian provinces, and every working rig provides direct and indirect employment for approximately 200 Canadians. Today, Canada has only 515 drilling rigs left, and only 20 of those rigs, or 3% of the entire fleet, and only 5 companies are working today. But there are 25 drilling rig companies in Canada, and this means that 20 drilling rig companies, or 80%, cannot generate revenue to pay the bills. And the future outlook for drilling activity is frightening, and the impact will be severe. We believe that nearly 70% of our annual drilling activity was already completed in the first quarter of this year. It means that in 2020, we may have fewer rigs working in Canada than in any period of recorded history. A few weeks back, you may have seen Dennis Day, one of our members out of Cardiff, Saskatchewan, talking about having to lay off nearly 250 people in a rural community of only 1,000 people. Many of these people he has known his entire life. After walking through his local grocery store and seeing one of his former employees buying a 10-pound ham and 3 loaves of plain white bread, and knowing that was all this man's family would have to eat for who knows how long, Mr. Day purchased $50,000 of grocery gift cards with his family savings and handed them out to those in need. Although Dennis's story is not uncommon, it is not shared nearly enough. Our industry allows many Canadians to work, play, and raise their children in small communities across the country. But this way of life is in jeopardy. We appreciate the federal government providing much needed support through the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy. This means many layoffs will be avoided, and it will help organizations withstand the sudden and hopefully short-term shock of the pandemic. But without a quick economic recovery and rebalancing of commodity prices, the program will have to be extended to prevent future layoffs. The government's $1.7 billion investment to remediate orphan and inactive wells will support Canada's struggling service rig sector and workforce and employ 5,200 people. However, to provide a true picture, the 5,200 jobs saved must be seen against the 200,000 jobs lost. Even amongst our association's own member companies, it's important to understand that most will receive little or no benefit from the well remediation funding, as welcome as that support is. The damage done to Canada's energy resource services sector puts them in a category of their own, and we urgently require additional government support if we are to survive. Our association has written to the Minister of Finance, urgently calling on the federal government to implement the following policies to save our beleaguered industry. Firstly, we recommend the government introduce additional liquidity measures through unsecured and subordinate financial instruments. Secondly, we recommend the federal government purchase income tax losses from drilling and service rig companies less the government's cost of capital. Thirdly, we recommend the federal government purchase accounts receivables from Canadian drilling and service rig companies at a discount. And finally, we recommend the federal government defer Canadian drilling and service rig companies' GST and payroll and remittance interest-free for 6 months instead of the current June 30th program. Mr. Chair, I ask the committee to carefully understand the value of Canada's oil and gas industry to the entire country. I ask you to help us pick it up from the ashes and turn it into what it can and must be, a pillar of strength and a natural advantage for every Canadian citizen in good times and bad. Thank you for your time today, and I look forward to answering any of the panel's questions.
Thank you very much, Mark, and we do remember Dennis' presentation. Turning to the Canadian Dental Association, Mr. Jim Armstrong, President. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon to the members of the committee. It's my pleasure to present to you today on behalf of the Canadian Dental Association. By way of introduction, I am the new president of the association and have been on the job for a whole 6 days. Coincidentally, I have served on the board of the CDA for the past 6 years, and I am the managing doctor for a dental cooperative with 10 practices and 150 team members throughout Vancouver. As well, I'm an adjunct professor at the Sauder School of Business at UBC and the former chair of the Economics Committee at the British Columbia Dental Association. I've been a student of strategy and public policy for over 40 years. My academic interests are econometric models, disruptive innovation, and AI. From that perspective, I can tell you that the COVID-19 outbreak and the ensuing shutdown have had a particularly negative impact on dentistry. This pandemic has brought two unwanted hitchhikers, which other speakers have already referenced. First, a liquidity crisis, and second, a solvency crisis. Dentistry is almost entirely a fixed cost business, and the debt to finance our dental practices is significant. Thus, when people have no money, all dental practices, like other businesses, have a liquidity crisis. Given the magnitude of the problem, many dental practices, like many of the other speakers have pointed out, now face a solvency crisis. When the pandemic hit, dentistry was shut down under the orders of the regulatory bodies in their respective provinces. Early in the pandemic, all hospitals were critically short of PPEs, and dentists across the country stripped their offices of PPEs to donate to their local hospitals. Most critically, in order to keep patients out of hospital emergency rooms, dentists as essential services provided emergency procedures to patients in pain with swelling or with infection. There was minimal billing of patients or no charges for these important services. Importantly, though, these few procedures not nearly enough to sustain a dental practice. I am deeply, deeply appreciative of the government's support of both liquidity and solvency issues for small business. The challenge has been historic. The programs that have been made available to businesses and to workers affected by the shutdown have helped to mitigate some of the worst possible outcomes. There are obviously difficulties that arise in trying to create programs that cover many different businesses, as we've heard, and then having individual businesses attempt to understand how they fit their particular situation. There are more than 18,000 dental offices across the country, and they operate in a multitude of business models. There is no roadmap back from a pandemic, nor is there a playbook as to what should be the stimulus packages to ensure Canadians have companies and jobs to return to. Given the circumstances, we greatly appreciate the government's willingness to be flexible and adapt the programs based on the feedback they receive. At this point, I think it is important that we begin to pivot and to look ahead at what comes next. The programs that were rolled out were intended to protect Canadians on the supply side to keep the economy afloat through a critical period. This is a Keynesian moment if there ever was one. Now we must consider what we will need to help us through this next phase as the economy reopens. In the coming weeks, dental offices will begin to open across the country in accordance with the guidelines set out by the provincial regulators, but it will be anything but business as usual. Dental offices are essentially mini hospitals. Like any hospital, we follow strict infection control procedures and practices. As dental offices begin to provide services again in the coming months, they will need to take on a multitude of new and additional costs. These costs include enhanced PPE for staff, and they may require physical changes to the office as well. We're still grappling with some of these questions. These new costs cannot be defrayed by adding to the cost of services. Furthermore, in order to maintain safety, we will not be as productive as in the past. We will not be capable of seeing as many patients per day as we did previously. Moreover, we are greatly concerned that these new costs will come at a time when some patients may not return to dental offices. Some people will be more reluctant to visit any healthcare provider, either for health or financial reasons. Consequently, they may postpone treatment until a pain or infection requires they go to the hospital emergency room. As we look ahead, dentistry would be most appreciative if the Government of Canada would consider the four following. First, an extension of the eligibility period for the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy. Many dental offices will only be reopening in the coming weeks, and we will need to bring back staff slowly over the coming months. An extension of this program would be significant help to dental practices. Second, recognize the challenges of retooling and reestablishing dental offices, and to ensure that we have the ability through grants or tax credits to defray some of these costs to help us better serve the public and keep Canada healthy. Third, government support to help more Canadian businesses provide extended healthcare benefits. This would be of substantial help to Canadians in accessing needed dental, psychological, vision, chiropractic, and physiotherapy services after a time of the most extreme stress I can ever remember. The lockdown has taken its toll on our oral health as well as on our physical and mental well-being. Fourth, currently during this pandemic, governments cover the cost of PPEs for public hospitals. It would be greatly appreciated if provincial dental associations could have access to a guaranteed supply of these PPEs at no cost for distribution to their members. And like the previous speakers, thank you very, very much, and I would be happy to take any questions in the future.
Thank you very much, Mark. Turning then to the Canadian Mushroom Growers Association, Mr. Kozlog and Ms. Craden. Floor is yours.
Great. Thanks for this opportunity to speak on behalf of the great Canadian mushroom industry. We contribute $1 billion to the Canadian economy and create 4,000 jobs. We employ 900 workers to the Temporary Foreign Worker Program agriculture stream for jobs that we advertise on an ongoing basis, but Canadians do not apply for. Canada's mushroom growers have high-tech and state-of-the-art facilities and with the most advanced growing techniques in the world. We produce nearly 200,000 tons of mushrooms and export 40% of our production to the United States. Members of the committee, we come before you today with grave concerns. Our farmers, who are the front lines of Canada's food supply, are struggling to produce food and keep our workforce safe. They are heroes, but they're being left out. The programs do not work for them, neither the Agriculture and Agri-Food, Canada Business Risk Management programs, or the emergency COVID measures. The Canadian Federation of Agriculture reports the cost of COVID-19 as $2.6 billion. The ornamental horticulture industry alone is $955 million. Our farmers can't get their truckloads of mushrooms to their markets because the restaurants have been closed down. Because of this, our farms have lost 30 to 50% of production. Due to the mandated restaurant closures and spiraling COVID-19 expenses, we estimate a cost of $6.5 billion for mushrooms. Going forward, this will be $400,000 per week. And today, we need to report our PEI farm mushroom member is no longer growing and had to lay off Canadian workers. And if our sector is not included in emergency aid, more layoffs could be imminent. How can we say Canada's food supply is secure when our essential farmers are being forced to cut back on production and forced to lay off essential farm workers? Committee members, it's disheartening to see funding announced in the billions of dollars from many, many groups, while at the same time, Canada is failing to prioritize funding for farmers, the front line of our food supply. We cannot find relief in any of the agriculture and agri-food programs. Agri-stability is irrelevant. The farmers have to fail below 70% revenue and be topped back up to 70% of previous farm incomes. If that's the situation, it's too late. Could you live on 2/3 of your income, especially with the expectation that farmers can't lay off anyone and have increased expenditures for COVID-19? Agri-Invest only works for those who are previously participating. Farmers are not requesting more debt through the Farm Credit Corporation loans. We are already highly leveraged. We cannot access the $50 million agriculture and agri-food housing announcement for incoming seasonal workers during the 2-week quarantines because our workers are already here. They're not in quarantine. Additionally, mushroom farmers are now subject to the carbon tax, for which we have asked for a rebate or exemption, for which some agriculture commodities are already received, even though studies show mushrooms are one of the lowest carbon footprint and water footprint crops. Members of Parliament, we call on you to step up to the plate and help fix this problem. I'll invite Janet Creighton to speak for the remaining of our time.
Thank you. Chair, members of this committee, farmers need help right now. They are the front line of our food supply. For mushrooms, what we have is 2.6 million oversupply, loss of production due to the closure of the restaurant market. We need 3.8 million that has been invested for emergency COVID measures, protecting our workforce for things such as extra housing, extra transportation, the protective equipment, and also creating more space in the workplace. So we're also needing a fair program providing a safety net in case a positive COVID case is found. So farmers need help. The Financial Post said this week, or else Canada could lose up to 15% of its farms this year. Farms closing and layoffs, this does not make sense as our grocery shelves are emptying. So in the United States, they're dealing with the exact same processing as well as production issues. Their food supply, an article this week said that it is breaking. There's not going to be as much food in the stores. So what does this mean? In the US, recently we know the case where they did not want to sell their face masks to us from the American companies. That was being prohibited. So how is it going to be any different when the farmers in the US are dealing with the same issues for Canada to get the same amount of imports? We really need to think through our food security at this time, both public safety and the finance committee. So we've reviewed all of the COVID measure programs, and we're finding that none of them are working for our farmers. And the reason why is they're built for, the parameters are for small business, but the Canadian modern agriculture farm today has a high capital investment, and particularly for mushroom farms, also a lot of employees. So they're not qualifying for the small business programs that have been released. In contrast, the US has released $19 billion for their farmers, $3 billion of which is for oversupply. So that's why we think the Canadian Federation of Agriculture's $2.6 billion is very accurate, because we know it's from surveys we all did last week. And we also feel it is proportionate compared to the food produced in the US, and it is a real need for the farmers. We're also calling it Ag Canada. Please step up to the plate. Let's roll out that Canada brand campaign. There's $25 million at Ag Canada that's been sitting there since January. We need to move that out now. We need to promote Canadian products at the store. So we're also asking the Retail Council, who we hope is testifying here on this panel with us. We had a meeting with them 2 weeks ago. We're saying, let's get a working group together. Let's have the farmers, let's have the processors, let's have the grocers. Let's fill the empty grocery shelves with Canadian products, and let's put a Canadian flag up there so people know where to buy the Canadian products first. And this is what we're asking for, and we're hoping that you can help us with this and get this prioritized, because we really can't wait anymore. So thank you very much, and we're looking forward to questions.
Thank you very much, Janet. The Retail Council of Canada is not on today due to a scheduling problem for them, but they will be on next week. I'm not sure if it's Tuesday or Thursday. Turning then to the Chartered Professional Accountants of Canada, Joy Thomas, President and CEO, Bruce Ball, Vice President, Taxation. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I'm Joy Thomas. I'm the President and CEO of the Chartered Professional Accountants of Canada, and with me today is Bruce Ball, our Vice President of Tax. I'd like to thank you for your invitation. It's a pleasure to speak virtually with you today. The federal government has acted swiftly and decisively through its COVID-19 economic response plan to provide direct assistance, tax payment deferrals, and credit and liquidity support at a time when it was most urgently needed. The accounting profession appreciates that we need to take these measures now, while at the same time, we're very cognizant of the work ahead to manage the nation's finances. We've been asked by the committee today to speak to the theme, support for Canadians not eligible for existing measures. And we'll start by saying CPA Canada supports the federal government's plan. Unfortunately, when dealing with the response of such historic magnitude and extreme time pressures, there will be certain individuals and businesses that are overlooked among the initial stimulus measures. This has happened, and the government deserves credit for making adjustments to assist some of those who have fallen through the cracks and are not eligible for government support. We've seen that with the enhancements to the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy Program, Canada Emergency Response Benefit, and the Canada Emergency Business Account. We've also seen it with the additional support being provided to vulnerable Canadians, students, and graduates, essential workers who are keeping us safe, and seniors who help to build this great country. Please note that we have attached an appendix to our remarks, and those are to highlight situations where there are gaps in support. It's vital that existing gaps be addressed, and that we understand some of these issues are being actively considered by government now. CPA Canada welcomes the opportunity to participate in the discussion that's happening today. And as always, we are appearing here to support Canadians, our businesses, and our society at large. Our organization maintains good working relationships with parliamentarians and senior government officials. In particular, we'd like to acknowledge the commitment and the dedication of the Canada Revenue Agency and Finance Canada. Extending numerous tax deadlines and providing greater clarity around the wage subsidy program are appreciated by tax professionals and their clients, including small to medium-sized businesses, as well as individual taxpayers. The key issues, though, that we're hearing from members around shortfalls in support relate primarily to the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy Program. Some specific issues include certain partnership arrangements which are not eligible, such as private-public partnerships and partnerships involving pension funds. Some cost-sharing or paymaster arrangements do remain problematic. The monthly revenue test does not work in some situations for seasonal businesses or other businesses where the revenue does not occur on a consistent monthly basis, and a number of technical issues that need to be worked through on the wage subsidy. Now, we're also hearing that extensions to other tax deadlines are needed, as outlined in our appendix, and we're currently discussing those issues with CRA. I'm very proud of the CPAs who are making a positive difference by helping individuals and businesses across our country, and this includes those CPAs who are supporting frontline healthcare workers by offering to prepare their returns free of charge through the Ontario Accounting for Bravery program, which is running in Ontario and in Manitoba. Elsewhere, there are other initiatives such as virtual tax clinics to help low-income and vulnerable Canadians with tax filings. CPA Canada is also doing its part by developing financial literacy and other resources to support members in helping Canadians and businesses survive through the COVID-19 pandemic, and importantly, to prepare for recovery. We're all rising to the challenge, and collectively, we will get through this crisis. The talks around a gradual reopening of the economy are promising. However, as leaders start to gradually ramp up our economy, there are many considerations at play and much at risk. Any reopening needs to ensure that the health of Canadians is protected, that workers are supported, and that decisions are data-driven and evidence-based. Ultimately, Canada will need a plan for recovery towards a sustainable economy with resilience in the future. I'd like to thank you, and Bruce and I look forward to taking your questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Thomas. Before I turn to our last witness, I'll give members a heads up on the speaking order for questions. Mr. Morantz first, then Ms. Kotrakis, Ms. LaRoche, and Mr. Julian. So we'll turn then to the racers, FADOQ, Ms. Giselle Tassé-Goodman.
Monsieur le Président, bonjour.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. Thank you to members of the Standing Finance Committee for this invitation. FADOQ is the largest seniors association in Canada with 535,000 members. We defend the rights of seniors, and the current crisis is dramatic and disturbing. Despite the measures which have been implemented, FADOQ sadly notes that many of our elderly have been forgotten. As you know, people who only receive old age security and the GIS must live on barely $18,000 a year. Well, living on that income was hard enough already. And certainly it was hard even before the pandemic. Now, the onset of this health and social crisis is making the financial distress worse because the price of basic necessities has increased. Further, containment measures have meant that many seniors have temporarily lost their network, and this results in additional costs. For example, the use of delivery services for products adds costs. In addition, many organizations have suspended their operations, and this causes many seniors to turn towards other services in the private sector, and this also entails additional cost. We're also in a lease renewal period, and the cost of living will no doubt also have to be absorbed by seniors. So we are asking the federal government to increase financial support through old age security or through the GIS to seniors. Seniors should not have to choose between buying food and buying medication. Now, with respect to measures to protect one's financial aspects, I have to tell you that the reduction of 25% of the RRIF minimum withdrawal rate has been received in a lukewarm manner by our members. Not a day goes by without seniors asking us about it, and many savers feel that mandatory RIF withdrawals should be cancelled by in 2020. As well, many have suggested raising the age at which it is mandatory to convert RSPs to RIFs. These two measures are obviously being proposed in order to limit the impact of the market downturn and the impact this has had on the financial wealth of many of Canada's seniors. Now, as president of the FADOC, I have to talk about the elephant in the room. A lot has been said about seniors' housing. The reality is that the provinces suffer from chronic underfunding in health from the federal government, according to the Conference Board of Canada. In 2018-2019, federal transfers for health care were in the order of $38.5 billion, while total spending by Canada's provinces and territories was $174.5 billion. The provinces and territories' health care funding accounts for 40% of their budgets, while the Canadian government funds only 22% of these expenditures. Still, according to the Conference Board of Canada, the growth rate of spending currently on health care in Canada will fall to less than 20% by 2026. We are therefore asking the federal government to increase the de-indexation of the Canada Health Transfer of 6% per year. That is, to bring it back to the same level it was at before 2017. As well, we should also include in the current formula a variable which would take into account the aging of the population broken down by province and territory. Seniors deserve to be treated with dignity, and the provinces and territories must have the means of their ambitions in this regard. Thank you, dear members of the committee, for welcoming and considering our requests on behalf of all seniors.
Thank you very much, Giselle. We appreciate all the presentations today from the witnesses, some of them on fairly short notice, I know, and so we thank you for appearing. We'll start. I think we can go to the 6-minute rounds, our usual time frame. I think we've got enough time to do it that way. We'll start with Mr. Morantz. Marty, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just first want to direct my questions and comments to Ms. Carter, Canadian Airports Council. My riding has the transportation hub of Manitoba, Winnipeg Richardson International Airport. By the end of 2019, they handled 4.5 million passengers and over 100 daily flights to more than 60 destinations. 18,500 families in Winnipeg rely on airport operations to put food on their tables from the jobs created at the airport. By March, our airport's traffic plummeted 60% almost overnight. Outbound traffic declined by more than 80%. As of the beginning of April, boarded passengers were down 92% from the prior year. Nearly all retail and food and beverage offerings are now closed. Parking lots are empty. In speaking with their president, CEO Barry Rempel, it seems the grim reality is that without further targeted assistance, many parts of the aviation sector could shut down. He believes the airport in my community will be facing reduced annualized revenues in 2020 of 63%. Given all this, given the financial strain that COVID crisis is having on airports, I'm just wondering if you could comment on whether the existing programs that have been offered by the federal government have been of any assistance.
Thank you for the question. I very much appreciate it. And the situation you described exactly mirrors all of the airports across Canada. So the significant drop in revenue because of the loss of passengers is exactly how you've described, including at the Winnipeg Airport. The Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy has been helpful to us, and I'm going to ask RJ Steenstra to comment on that program and its relevance to the airports across Canada.
Go ahead, Mr. Keystra.
Yes, hi. Thank you very much, Joyce. So the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy is hugely important to our entire economy and as well our airports. We just confirmed in the last 24 hours that Canada's 21 privately operated airport authorities are eligible for this program. The delay in this confirmation, however, has meant that airports have already laid off employees, unfortunately. And that is, it's going to be difficult for us to bring those workers back. At least 12 of the CAC member airports are ineligible for this wage subsidy program based on their governance structure as municipal and or territorial airports. So it is a mixed review in terms of who's able to access that program and who is not currently able to access that program.
Thank you both, Marty.
Thank you. Just to go on, I wanted to have you, either one of you, address the issue of supply chains. I know in Manitoba, the airport in Winnipeg services many northern communities. A lot of these small airports play an essential role in the critical supply chain for Indigenous, northern, and remote communities. Winnipeg's airport is a critical part of that supply that keeps the north connected and receiving supplies required to sustain life. What's your view on whether these programs are of assistance in maintaining that supply chain, especially for northern and Indigenous communities?
Again, thank you for the question, and perhaps I'll start and then I will get RJ as the chair of our small airports to speak specifically to your question. Before I do, I just want to add one thing about the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy is the recovery for the aviation business is going to be extremely long. And so while we very much appreciate the program that is put in place today, and it is currently scheduled to expire in June. By it ending in June is simply going to push the ball down the court in terms of when airports need to lay off employees for those that haven't already done so, because our recovery is going to be so long delayed. So we very much would like to see that program extended. When we look at northern communities and the supply chain in particular in the smaller communities, RJ, if I can ask you to comment on that, thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. And thanks again for the question. I think it's important to recognize that smaller communities and smaller airports are vital links for these areas, including Indigenous communities. And they're important for access to food, supplies, healthcare, and people. In some cases, of course, small airports or regional airports even play a role in removing barriers to job opportunities for Indigenous populations who commute to or by air to and from their communities to remote job sites in the NWT, in northern Alberta, throughout the north. Small airports are essential service for, of course, safety, economic, and of course, social prosperity. But I think what's really important for airports like this is to access liquidity. With fewer sources of revenue and without access or ability to service their debts, these airports need capital to offset the cost of their operations, and especially for regulatory compliance. So while there's a federal program for small airports through the ACAP program or the Airport Capital Improvement Program, this program has long been underfunded and does not currently meet the industry at the best of times, let alone during a crisis like we're going through with COVID-19. Thank you.
Okay, do you get a short supplementary there, Marty?
A quick one for Ms. Thomas from the Accountants Association. My role is Shadow Minister for National Revenue. I'm interested in your suggestions in terms of the extension of tax deadlines. I know a number of them were extended. I thought I heard you say that you had additional suggestions, and I was wondering if you could just elaborate on those for a moment.
Joy?
Yeah, we do have some specific additional suggestions, and if you would allow me, I'm going to ask my colleague Bruce Ball to respond.
Bruce?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Joy. We do have some suggestions. What we're finding is with the work on the subsidy programs and advising clients and also the extensions that have happened already, a lot of our members, and I think tax preparers generally, are finding that a lot of the work they would do before the end of April has been pushed out, and they'll still be working on personal tax returns throughout May, probably right to the deadline June 1st. So the concern is some of the other work is going to have to be deferred just because they're working on other things. And of course, they're, as everyone's trying to cope, things just aren't running as smoothly either in terms of people working at home and that sort of thing. So what we're asking, and we've been discussing with the Canada Revenue Agency already, is if something could be done with the June 15th deadline for self-employed individuals. And there's a lot of corporate returns due at the end of June. So we're looking at those two things. The other thing we've asked for is perhaps a little more clarity that could be given to taxpayers and their advisors around logistical issues. And this would be, situations where a tax advisor hasn't been able to meet with a client and get their information. So we're hoping the taxpayer relief program, a little more information could be given on how that would operate at a time like this as well.
Thank you.
Thank you all. And I will say, Bruce, on the deferrals, my own accountant told me in no uncertain terms the exact same things. There needs to be some deferrals or they can't handle the work. Turning then to Ms. Koutrakis, who will be followed by Ms. LaRouche. Go ahead, Annie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me okay? Because I seem to be having some technical difficulties.
You're crackling. What's it like there in the booth, David? Do you want to say a few words, Annie?
It's
Hi,
crackling
David.
for us again.
Long time no see.
You can keep going a little bit.
Keep going a little further, Annie.
It's really nice to be here with everybody today. I don't know if I'm coming through better.
Not really, unfortunately.
Okay.
We'll get the technicians to have a look at that. If Miss LaRouche, are you ready to roll? We'll go to you and then come back to Annie, and we'll see if we can fix that technical problem.
Mr. Chair, I think what I'll do is I'll log off and go back.
Bonjour.
In.
Okay. Go ahead, Miss LaRouche.
Oui, bonjour.
LaRouche, oui, bonjour. Can you hear me? As a speaker of the Bloc for Seniors, I'm speaking today. That's why I'm here with you today. I will direct my questions to Madame Goodman-Tassé from FADOC. First of all, Madame Goodman-Tassé, you've said it very well. Financial support to our seniors. There's been help for various groups, various $1 billion invested, but very few measures for our seniors. Their expenses, as you've said very well, have not decreased during this crisis. Quite the contrary. And those who receive $2,000 see a difference between, is it paying for your rent downtown or in further away in the countryside. Of course, there's also an increase in how much food costs and how much services now cost. So my question is, with all this, would an increase of the guaranteed income supplement be a necessity rather than a possibility? And why can't measures help the seniors that we have get out of the crisis? But as you've said it, Madame LaRouche, we're communicating since the very beginning of the pandemic and even before. There's a very significant need. The current government had promised to increase by 10% old age security for our seniors. We're still waiting for that. we hope that it's old age security or the guaranteed income supplement, one or the other, but an increase, whatever it is. With the pandemic, our seniors are confined in their houses, their apartments. They cannot leave their apartments, so they're fully isolated, completely isolated. They have to call upon external services because the support that they normally have from their family, their friends, is not even possible anymore. So they have to purchase by phone, they have to order, there's an increase for basic products, for butter, flour, bread. It's already increased. There's also an increase because they have to pay for delivery fees. This is added to things that they didn't have to pay for in the past. So we really hope for the government to focus on that and increase, whether it's old age security or like they had promised last year, or the guaranteed income supplement. Yes, and you said it quickly, but seniors are also living a lowering of the market on their RIF. Also, their grocery basket is increasing, but their savings are worth less. They've saved over a life, and there's the crisis, the market crisis. Though, is it too late to protect their funds, their RIFs, or how could we protect them? Well, what they're asking is that there's a loss in their investment. They're seeing their very slight income, what they were able to save over the years, melt like snow under the warm sun. So they want to stop that completely for this year. So also I said that seniors want for RSPs to be converted into RIFs until 65. So for some people, they would still be able to be part of the labor force. They could also keep contributing, because there's a lack of workers right now. They could improve their quality of life. They are part of the labor force, and they would have an income, and there's a transfer of knowledge when those people stay on the labor force. So by bringing it, pushing it back to 75, that would allow them to keep on investing in their RIFs, and also they could be part of the labor force. You talked about health, and also in your presentation, the transfers, the Canadian health transfer. There's a health crisis where they live right now, and also for community assistance, which is dependent on health budgets. Those groups have to use help that does not come back, that is not stable, and that has not been increased for so long. And with increasing needs, and you talked about it, it's of crucial importance. But how could health transfers, how could it help them to go through this crisis, and how will it help them afterwards? According to StatsCan, in Canada, there's 5.1 million seniors who will reach 65 years of age in the 10 years to come. So that's important. So we're not specialists, but what we think is that the Canadian health transfer should be increased 6%, because we know that it was reduced in 2017, and we also know that it has an impact on the active population. In the provinces, in the territories, there's less income, less taxes paid, and that's what's happening, and that's what will keep happening. So we want it to be brought back up 6% for all the provinces and territories. Also, you dealt with their isolation, which is a strong determinant of health. In the current crisis, it also shows how important it is for everybody to have access to internet, namely for our seniors. And since Service Canada offices don't exist anymore, they're supposed, or the lines are completely busy, and in some regions it's very difficult, and it's very important to maintain links. It's like distance parenting or distance contact. That shows how internet is important. Of course, it's crucial. The government of Canada has to invest more to connect every Quebecer, every senior, because they have to have access to internet. Not only that, but quality internet. There's regions where it's much harder to have internet access, and it also have to be access. It's not financially accessible for our seniors, so those who don't have enough money cannot get these services and they cannot communicate through internet. Yes, of course, we're at the crisis. Oh,
LaRouche, thank you. We'll go back to Ms. Koutrakis and then on to Mr. Julian. Annie? Annie, I think your system's working. Are you there, Annie? Must be off system. Peter, we will, Mr. Julian, we will go to you and then come to Mr. Cumming if we don't get Annie back on. Go ahead, Mr. Julian.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to all of our witnesses for being with us today. And we do hope that your families are healthy and safe. I will start with questions for Madame Rassi-Goodman. Thank you for your presence here. You hit the nail right on the head. You said that our seniors need more support during the crisis. The NDP had a motion adopted on Wednesday, a motion that forces our government to give more support to our seniors in the coming days. With no further ado, and you've also put the finger on the lack of funding in the health system and how it contributes to long-term care facilities. How much do you think that this underfunding in the health sector deepened the crisis that we're currently going through? Well, listen, currently, and I could say that it's all the parties and all the media saying that we have to do more for seniors, whether it's the builders, the wise people of society, and the seniors are saying it too with the old age supplement. For example, internet is unaffordable. They cannot pay for that. You will remember when I sat in front of you in February, we discussed it. The 10% increase that had been promised by the current government has still not been put into force. The seniors feel abandoned and there are very significant needs. Mr. Julian, as you know, our network, FADOC, wants provisions for the seniors that they have to be remembered. They're in confinement, they are in quarantine, and it's very hard for them. I hope that you will hear all seniors calling upon you because a lot of them are getting the guaranteed income supplement.
To Ms. Carter. Ms. Carter, you've very eloquently put the case of the importance of providing support to our airports across the country. Obviously, we have to keep pushing to make sure that municipal airports that are operated municipally are also part of that equation. And you've spoken about the capital investments, the operations, the regulations. One thing that we haven't yet spoken about is the workers. Now, there are, of course, supports that should be brought to bear for the airport sector, but we want to make sure that the workers that were there prior to this crisis are not going to see a marked deterioration in their quality of life coming out of this crisis. So can the Canadian Airport Council confirm that in terms of the wage subsidy, that it would be 100% of wages and benefits that would be provided to workers, that the airports are willing to give 24-month recall rights so that airport workers have the opportunity as you mentioned, it's going to be a very long climb back up so that workers can come back into their jobs, and that contractors at Canadian airports will be considered as successor employers so that new contractors can't use this crisis to lower wages and eliminate benefits.
So thank you for that. I appreciate your comments very much so. And certainly from a Canadian airports perspective, the emergency wage subsidy is very helpful. As I mentioned, all now except 12 airports, as we understand, qualify because of the municipal consideration, but that we're told by CRA is still under review. So that's excellent. Certainly when we look at the wage subsidy as it applies to each airport authority, it is up to those airport authorities to decide whether they continue with full employment and compensation of those employees. I do know, I'm not aware of any airport that has gone to a reduced compensation. So as you know well, the subsidy provides, I believe it's up to $850 some a week. And this certainly will compensate additional wages for the employees we have here at the airports today. When you look at the Halifax airport, we employ 5,800 workers here, the size of the town of Kentville as an example. And so we are very much an employment generator, and everything we do, same as other airports, is to continue and ensure we have the employment of all of the sectors that support airports. And the wage subsidy is a big part of that. It allows those employees to continue to be paid, as you say, wages and benefits. I do worry a lot about the end of that and what it means as the businesses start to recover if it only goes till the end of June.
We'll have to move on to the 5-minute round, with maybe time for another question later, Peter. Turning then to Mr. Cumming and then on to Mr. Sabera. James?
Well, yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses today. And before I go through my line of questioning, just a comment to Mr. Steenstra. Thoughts are with the people up in Fort McMurray, and if there is a city that has taken it on the chin, it's certainly been Fort McMurray, with fires, with the reduction in the resource sector, and now with the floods. So thoughts are with you. I want to direct my questions to start with to Mr. Schultz, I think he's still on the call. We heard from the Governor of the Bank of Canada how important the resource sector is to the Canadian economy and how important it'll be to the recovery. So from your perspective and your members' perspective, how critical is it that we see some form of a package from the finance minister? I know he promised that it was days and then weeks away, and it's been a month now. Can you offer any kind of comment as to your members as to how they're feeling about that situation and how big is the crisis for them?
Well, thank you. Thanks for the question. Yeah, so I would say this. We certainly are very worried about the future of the sector without additional liquidity measures. Now, we've seen some very prudent investments, and we certainly are incredibly thankful to the federal government for including measures like the wage subsidy. We have been reviewing the BDC liquidity programs. Unfortunately, they don't go far enough, I think, to ensure ultimately the survival of the sector. When we look at on the drilling rig side, for example, there's very little incentive or desire to put this equipment to work with the current commodity prices today. You'll recall in Western Canada, we were at negative commodity prices, which meant that literally Canadian producers were paying someone to take barrels of oil and their resource away from them to put it somewhere. And so in that sort of environment, we cannot see a reason why a drilling rig would be required until two things happen. And we think we're at least 12 to 18 months out before this materializes is that, one, we need to see a significant increase in overall demand. Keep in mind, we've had a 30% reduction in overall crude demand around the world. The world used to consume about 100 million barrels per day. Today, it consumes about 70. So that 30% reduction in demand certainly impacted pricing. Secondly, we have had the supply shock where we have had foreign powers which produce their products at a much less environmental state, have flooded the North American market and has also added to the crushing of pricing for our commodity. So that's a long way of saying we believe that the industry is in a very, very precarious state. Without additional support measures, it is very unclear as to how many participants are going to get to the other side. And with that will be a blow to critical service infrastructure to the oil and gas industry, and it will not allow us to produce high quality Canadian oil and gas.
So, Mark, what do you say to the naysayers that we hear it from time to time? So prices are down. Why are we even in this industry? And we hear that from time to time from people. And I know, living in Alberta, how critical this industry is, and I know that sector will come back. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's very difficult to replace one of the largest portions of a country's GDP. And quite frankly, one of the largest industries with respect to, I would say not in this sort of market, but certainly in years past, the largest portion of the publicly traded market, like the TSX, which trades around 20% within the energy sector. So when you look at things like retirement plans, when you look at things like taxation, employment, all of these things are significantly impacted by an industry that isn't running on full cylinders. The second point I would make is that, Canada we are so proud of our people. We're proud of our technology. There is no question that the oil and gas industry in Canada is the best in the world. And the world is going to consume energy and energy in the form of fossil fuels for a very long time. And that energy needs to come from Canada. In fact, one of the MPs, I believe it was Elizabeth May, had mentioned that we need to ensure that Canadians consume responsible energy from Canada. And we agree with that. In fact, we want to make sure but we need infrastructure to do that. We need to ensure that every Canadian coast to coast to coast does not have to rely on the Saudis or Nigeria or the Russians. It is in our national strategic interest as a country, as Canadians, that our energy resources gets produced here in Canada, it gets distributed in Canada, and that we get full price for our products, full stop. And we can get there. We can get there. We just need to ensure we have the leadership and the will to get us to that strategic point.
We're substantially over time, and we'll get to Elizabeth at the very end. I did want to, while we're on you, Mark, ask you one question related to your proposal. You said point 2 was purchase income tax loss less government's cost of capital. Point 3 was purchase receivables, etc. What would you see the process be for doing that?
So on the income tax, so our industry has been in a position where we have sizable tax losses for the last 5 years. Particularly in the oil field service industry, it has not had positive earnings for better part of 5 years. So there are sizable tax losses that are there that ultimately will delay when our industry and our sector will be taxable in the future. And so what we're saying is allow us to monetize those tax losses today. We certainly would be prepared to give the government the cost of its internal borrowing, so that there would be essentially no cost to the government. But what it does is actually puts instant liquidity into these struggling companies, who then will be paying income taxes earlier than they had been if those tax losses would have been taken into future years. We believe that there's about $460 million in potential liquidity just from the federal government through a program like this. Secondly, with the receivables, we believe that there is in excess of $500 million in potential receivables. One of the things we're very worried about is that if we have oil and gas companies that we work for, producers, and some of them go under, they will take service companies along with them, which will be completely disastrous for the oil field sector.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I'll go on to Mr. Sabera and then back, I believe, to Annie, who still missed the first round. Go ahead, Francesco, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome everyone this afternoon. Thank you for your testimony. This pandemic is challenging our societal norms, and for these witnesses this afternoon, whether it's the airlines and airports where we need to get people flying again, but obviously they'll be sitting close together again, whether it's for the folks from the Mushroom Association, and my riding is based, we have a mushroom processor here and a grower here. And with all the banquet halls and restaurants shut down, there's obviously no demand for mushrooms, and we can't get them going until we figure out a way to get people in there safely and having them sitting beside each other. For the dentists, I think every Canadian will be going to see their dentist when that opens up and the province allows us to. So we know that there's got to be a plan in place, and hopefully we can get to that sooner than later. My first question for the Airports Council, if you have a view, Air Canada has come out, I think I read today, that they expect that airline traffic we should pick up again by the end of the year for the Christmas travel season. I surely hope so. Does your association have a view for that? I'd like to go out and visit PEI this summer, just to put a plug in for Wayne, with my family. But do you have a view on that, please?
So certainly from a domestic perspective, we expect air travel to start to open up towards the end of this summer. From an international perspective, it's going to be much longer. And certainly to your point, and thank you for summarizing it so well, is the social distancing is going to be the biggest challenge. And so as people fly, as they make their way through airports, they have to feel healthy and safe to do that. We have to provide them with an environment that they feel healthy and safe to do that.
Yes.
And so domestic will definitely pick up first. And I saw Air Canada's post today. That was really great to read. People will start to move within Canada initially, but even not between provinces until we're able to start to move some of the quarantine measures that are there.
Absolutely. I think the issue of being with the airlines is that once they start operating again, their load factors or occupancies aren't going to be very high. So there may be a need for liquidity on that front, because when they're shut down, it's one thing. But when they start operating again, if I'd like to go visit my parents out in Vancouver, you're used to having a full Air Canada or WestJet plane, or you may not see that, so they need some assistance. To the mushroom sector, agro-food sector here in Ontario, to a lot of people's surprise, is actually one of our largest industries. It's actually bigger than the auto sector. And your time frame in terms of the support and assistance that you need. You referenced that some of the programs aren't helping. Obviously, you can put your employees on the CEWS, and 86,000 firms in Canada have taken advantage of the CEWS, but at the same time, you can't sell your product right now. So what other forms of assistance would you be looking for or have requested, if you could just sum it up in 30 seconds?
Yeah, essentially what we're looking for is a cash infusion into our industry in any way that they can at this point. So our request is for the $6.5 million that we've seen as an already experienced loss or cost to the industry. And if they could provide that to our industry in any means that they can, that's what we need now in order to avoid more layoffs and avoid shutdown.
Okay, thank you. And one last, if I just have to move on to another sector though, Chair. To the energy folks, I was looking at the GDP data for Canada and the components, and to get to the contribution that energy does with mining, you have to add about 6 or 7 sectors to get to that 10% mark, and the 500,000 or 600,000 jobs, good paying jobs that we have. So I've always been a big supporter of the energy sector. In another decade, when energy prices were high, a lot of folks from East Coast Canada went to Alberta, moved there, made quite a good living, and it supported certain regions of Canada during that time. And we have to remember that. So in this period of time, we know there's been demand destruction. We also know there's been a supply issue, which came to my attention in early March when I was paying attention to the global oil markets. With that, in terms of the liquidity, I'd like to say, are there certain sectors in Alberta that there is some that we can refer to, even though it might not be yours, that there is some positive news? And I think about the petrochemical or the chemical sector, especially in the Alberta Industrial Heartland, where there are billion-dollar projects ongoing. And I would love to just get some color there, because I don't think it's all doom and gloom. We have a vibrant oil sector in Canada. It may structurally change, but we need it to continue. And as you say, energy, 80% of Ontario's energy needs are satisfied by non-renewable resources. And the other 20%, 60% is nuclear energy. And it's going to be very hard to replace for many, many, many years to come. And it's going to be a large component. So any comments on that front would be great. Thank you.
Well, I mean, on the good news front, I mean, one of the areas that we are taking a very particular keen interest in is looking at redeploying our drilling rigs that have traditionally been used 95% of the time in oil and gas. We are looking at deploying those same assets along with other oil field services in the geothermal industry. And, this is, it's a budding industry. It has huge potential in Canada. But the reality is, it will not save the drilling sector, but it certainly is a huge opportunity, I think, for Canada to look at, renewable base load technology and to redeploy drilling assets that would typically have been used in oil and gas. So I would say, we have looked at and we've met with different federal officials to get different, funding provisions for exploration and to look at the feasibility of geothermal. And so I would say that is a pocket of good news for the industry in its challenging times right now.
Thank you. Thank you all. You want to see geothermal? Go to Iceland for sure. We'll go to Ms. Koutrakis now, and then to Mr. Polyev, if your sound is working. Annie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can everyone hear me okay? I was asked to use the microphone on my laptop. I wanted to say thank you very much to all of our witnesses and their presentations this afternoon. Great exchange of comments and insight. And I'm sure all of us are going to walk away today feeling a little bit more smarter. I know that I will. My first question, and I'm hoping to get two questions in. My first question is to Mr. Armstrong. I want to begin by recognizing the concerns raised by dentists, also dentists in my own riding in Vimy, Laval, primarily around the need for appropriate PPE equipment. And they note that without them, nothing happens. Of course, our government, as you know, is doing everything it can to procure everything we need, but I do note your concerns. The CDA has noted that while professional dental corporations and self-employed dentists will likely have no issue accessing the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy, questions were raised around whether cost-sharing arrangements or partnerships would be eligible to receive this support. To your knowledge, have dentists employed in cost-sharing arrangements and partnerships experienced any challenges when applying for the CEWS?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. Short answer is yes. About 26% of dentists function in some sort of cost-sharing partnership, and sometimes, they're both partners are now. Their wages or bill is too high, or they're having other issues. So being able to take a look at some of those things would be excellent. You mentioned the PPEs. I think what we heard today is everybody's had this massive collapse in demand, and we all are facing liquidity and solvency issues. One of the things I have to really compliment my Premier Horgan in BC and the federal government is that they both have actually identified companies that can manufacture PPEs, but they don't have the high-tech equipment. So they've been able to get them capital to buy this high-tech equipment and then they've been the purchaser of primary supply. And, I think that's one thing all Canadian companies are going to have to do, with the pivoting that the oil and gas industry is going into geothermal. So I think if we can continue to have programs like that support all of us in these new ventures and in bringing some of the supply chain back to Canada, that would be great.
Absolutely. And I think that would be a really great way to stimulate our economy as well and work towards self-sufficiency. Based on feedback also from your members, will the CECRA program sufficiently cover the cost of rent for dental practices, or will additional rent supports be required?
Yeah, thank you again for that question. If the Retail Council was on here, I'm sure that we would have the same issues. That program, and again, it's anecdotal. I don't have data from across Canada, which bothers me. But what we've heard out in BC is very few landlords are going to take advantage of that. They don't want to take a 25% haircut. And, I find that disappointing. So that doesn't seem to be, at this point, it doesn't seem to be that beneficial to us.
Any suggestions?
Yeah, no, I was thinking about this one. We've all talked about extending the wage support for employees. If that was extended, some of that money could also be used towards rent support. The program as it is, I think, looks upon, the government pays 25%, I believe. There's 50, I think the government pays 50%. And the renter pays 25% and the landlord pays 25%.
Right.
Perhaps if that 50% could be delivered in a program similar to the wage subsidies directly to the renters, then we'd be able to do something like that. So,
thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do I have a time? For
no, I'm sorry, Annie. You're out of time.
Okay.
Thank you all. We will go to Mr. Polyev and then on to Mr. Fragiskatis. Pierre?
Yes, Chairman, can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can. Can't see you, but we can hear you.
You can't see me?
No.
All right, I'll try that again.
There, now you're looking good. You were.
All right. Okay. There we go. Thanks very much, Chairman. My question is for the agricultural and farming representatives on the panel today. I have some great farms in my riding. I represent the beautiful Carleton countryside, south and west of Ottawa, and I have some great dairy, cash crop, and horticultural operations. One of them is Carleton Mushrooms, which is one of the biggest mushroom producers in Ontario, if not Canada. They employ about 50 people and produce an incredible product. The farm groups have come up with a request for $2.6 billion of rescue assistance to get through the COVID lockdown. Obviously, our food supply is is essential to our survival. Without agriculture, there is no human life. So I'd like to ask any of the farm representatives on the panel today, how did you come up with $2.6 billion? And why will that number allow our farmers to get through the COVID lockdown and come out the other side strong enough to continue supplying our population with nutritious and delicious food?
Janet here, I'll just speak very quickly and then hand off to Ryan. Can you hear and see me?
We can hear you, Janet.
Okay. So first of all, just a point of clarification for the other member of Parliament. Currently, the mushroom farms, I would say the majority of farmers in Canada do not qualify for any of the emergency COVID measures. Neither are the agriculture programs working. So we qualify for nothing right now. Now I'm going to hand this off to Ryan. Thank you.
Just to interject there before you come in, Ryan, to Pierre, the mushroom industry seems to be outside of being able to qualify for the regular farm programming. I don't know why that is, but that is basically the bottom line here. I'll not take the time from you. but they're in a different situation than the general farm community with so many of the farm programs, and maybe Ryan can give us a good answer. Go ahead.
Yeah, so partly is because we do grow 365 days a year, but have a large workforce, including temporary foreign workers. So that puts us in a position that's unique to temporary foreign worker programs, where traditionally they're under the seasonal ag worker program. But to answer the question about the $2.6 million, that was a number that was gathered by the Canadian Federation of Agriculture of all its membership. We included our numbers there, which include not only production losses, but costs of just having to supply the equipment, provide double the amount of transportation, install the barriers in the lunchrooms and the packing facilities. There's a number of different things that have taken place that have increased the cost significantly in order to provide the foods in our grocery stores. And I can't help but think that all these issues that are being brought forward about costs of living and other industries struggling, we all eat 3 times a day, if not more. And so I just want to express the importance of how we need to make sure this food supply, and we have it. We need to make sure it's domestic. We need to make sure that we have these industries sustaining themselves and not running into these situations where they have liquidity issues and having to lay off. We don't want to be importing our food, just like we don't want to be importing our oil. We want to be supplying ourselves and getting these foods to the grocery stores and making sure places like Carlton Mushrooms are doing well and staying open and providing our food.
And Janet, if I could follow up, 2 questions for you. One, explain why farms don't qualify for the COVID rescue packages that have come out so far from the government. And 2, what will be the impact of the carbon tax on non-exempt fuel costs for producers across the country?
Thank you, Pierre. Yes, so basically the COVID measures do not work for the farmers. And I would say this would be for all farmers in Canada. And that is because we do not qualify as small business, because farms have a lot of capital investment,
right,
and machinery, and we're not small business that way. And also, we have a lot of workers. So because of those 2 criteria that are within the small business programs, we are not qualifying for anything. Also, we are not qualifying, and I have to explain this to the committee, for any of the agriculture programs, and it's not just mushrooms. There are some serious problems with the agriculture suite of programs that exist currently. And unless the parameters are fixed and the Canadian Federation of Agriculture has explained how it needs to be fixed, then we cannot access any funding either through the agriculture programs. So that is our 2 issues. We have no access to any funding right now, and that's why we're asking for this committee's help to get this fixed. And now I'm going to hand it back to Ryan for you to talk about the carbon tax, Ryan.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, so the carbon tax is becoming a big issue for our farms. Like I mentioned, we go 365 days a year. That means that our buildings have climate-controlled facilities. They use a lot of gas, they use a lot of electricity, very efficiently, however. But these costs of the carbon tax are weighing on them. The number one cost is labor, followed that is energy inputs. So if we increase those costs significantly, we're going to be seeing increased costs in food. So there are other industries that we know of, like the greenhouse, that has received an exemption or a rebate for the carbon tax. And so we're looking for that too, just like other fellow ag commodities, alleviation from the carbon tax.
Okay, thank you everyone for that round. We will now be going to Mr. Fragascatas and then on to Ms. LaRouge, unless Gabriel wants in, I don't know. I think Ms. LaRouge to you, and then to one question to Ms. LaRouge, one to Mr. Julian. Go ahead, Peter.
Well, as I understand it, Mr. Chair, Ms. Carter is actually a constituent of
Mr. Fraser's, and I'm not one to stand in the way of democracy, so I'm going to just pass along my time to Mr. Fraser.
Okay, Sean, you're on deck.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to my colleague for being so generous with his time, and welcome to all of our witnesses, and in particular, Ms. Carter, who's joining us not only in her capacity, national capacity, but as the CEO of the Halifax International Airport Authority. I'm just realizing I might have my speakers on here, so I'll do a quick change and hopefully that improves the sound quality. Ms. Carter, thank you for being with us. I've got two areas that I'd like to explore if the time allows. The first, we heard through your testimony about some of the importance of the direct economic impact that your airport provides to our region and airports more generally. In addition to whatever direct impact there may be, obviously, airports can be remarkable economic enablers for communities and for regions as well, as is the case with the Halifax Stanfield International Airport. I want to get your thoughts in particular on one of the industries that's of strategic importance to the Atlantic region, the tourism sector, that is going to be particularly hard hit this year. The testimony we've heard previously and in my conversations with tourism operators is that this season in a lot of ways feels like a lost one, and so many of our operators are just hoping they can hang on and preserve the tourism networks that exist for the next season. I'm curious if you can shed some insight on how the airports could play a role in the recovery for the tourism sector, and how the federal government might be able to facilitate a contribution from airports to the tourism sector's recovery.
Thank you for your question, Sean. Nice to see you. For sure, as you know, historically, Halifax Stanfield has played a significant role in the tourism industry in Nova Scotia. So 2 out of every 3 tourists who come to Nova Scotia come by way of the Halifax Stanfield Airport. And those stats are similar across the country. We have been working closely with all of the industries because it is so important that the airport be here and ready when the industry rebounds. And certainly this summer will be very difficult for the tourists. We talked earlier on the call about transportation and travel being mostly within Canada in 2020. What we have to do is we have to be financially sound, and we have to be ready when that business is ready to come back. So when you think about the tourism industry itself, and you think about what the airport, some of the comments I made earlier about the financial position we're in, and perhaps one of the ways we may get out of that through fees and charges, that will only be able, we're a non-share capital corporation, that will only be able to be absorbed by the system if it is passed on through to the travelers. And so the last thing we want to do as an association, as an airport, as an industry is increase our fees into the future to allow us to come out of this. And some of the items that I talked about in my presentation will be helpful in helping us maintain those fees at a low level, because they will be passed on to the consumer.
So what kind of fees would consumers potentially be looking at, and how would their travel experience be impacted in the event that you do need to pass these costs on? Like what give me a practical example of what a traveler might be looking at from the booking process right through to the time they board their flight?
So the airport improvement fee is a key one that may get passed on. So as we know, that's paid directly today by travelers. That is paid for the capital improvements at airports. When you look at the airports across Canada and they model out their financial stability over the next 5 years, they don't have enough revenue, because we get revenues only from passengers to generate it to sustain the costs that are here. So that airport improvement fee, and in some cases, has to go up 40 and 50% to be able to sustain our operations through the most critical period. And that's a direct pass on to the passengers. We do not want that to happen. We do not want to borrow, as our models show us we would need to do, so much so that we're not in a strong financial position to be able to support the tourism industry coming out of this.
So I'm actually curious about one of the comments you made during your initial response about most of the travel in 2020 being domestic travel. Mm-hmm. I've in some of the conversations I've had with tourism operators, they've asked for the federal government to put some sort of a push on to encourage domestic travel once the public health advice suggests it's safe to do so. Are there things that you think we can do to help airports facilitate domestic travel so tourism operators may mitigate? We may see a mitigation against some of the worst economic consequences of this outbreak.
For sure, when you think about travel, even between provinces right now, one of the main things that has to happen before that can happen is the provinces have to open up their borders when it is safe to do so. When you look in the Atlantic region, those borders are all closed, even to intra-provincial travel. That's the first thing that has to happen to allow people to travel safely and to allow the carriers to be able to carry the passengers between those provinces. The second thing we need to do, which we've started to do now, is work really closely with the industry to ensure that we have all of the procedures and processes and equipment in the airport to allow those travelers to feel safe. They're still not going to travel even domestically if they don't feel safe. When I think about what happened after 9/11, huge investment for the security that was needed to be made. Today with the pandemic, that investment is going to be around the technologies and the processes, the touchless processes that passengers can go through. Innovation is a big example, Sean, that will allow them to feel safe as they go through the airport. And so we need to preserve the cash we have today to allow us to make those investments, to then be ready to facilitate the growth in tourism that's going to happen when we start to come out the other side of this.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both for that. Thank you, Sean and Joyce. We will go to one question in the following orders. Ms. LaRouche, Mr. Julian, Ms. May, Mr. Morantz, if he's still on, and Mr. Fragiskatis. Ms. LaRouche, floor is yours.
Parfait, merci.
Thank you, perfect. I will keep my line of questioning for FADOC. I'm also hearing a lot of concerns on protecting retirement plans. A lot of bankruptcies will happen. So for you, what is happening now worrying you? And I would also ask that you submitted a brief to status of women on what's happening, this threat to pensions and the power to purchase. How would this impact senior women more particularly? In February, when we sat at this committee, it's still very current with COVID. There's bankruptcies that will happen in the coming months. We know that, and we also expect workers who will see their retirement plans cut short because of that. So for the federal government, two measures could be implemented because there's two acts that are the responsibility of the federal. There's the Bankruptcy Act, and there's also the Act for agreements with creditors. Those acts could be modified to help seniors to be at the same level as banks. We've asked the government of Quebec to introduce a pension fund insurance plan. The federal government could, on its part, could play a leadership role by modifying those two acts that I already mentioned. So this would also have an impact on women because women who are heads of businesses, who are also workers in the labor force, could also be faced with losses. And we've seen it in various companies without quoting them. There's a lot of workers who lost a big part of their pension plan. Thank you so much.
They end it there. Thank you, Andrea. Mr. Julian, and then on to Ms. May.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. My question is to Mr. Armstrong. Mr. Armstrong, you've been very clear in the common sense recommendations that come from the Canadian Dental Association. I don't think anyone would disagree with them, but I want to drill down a bit more on point 3, where you talk about government support for expanding healthcare benefits. Now, of course, in the United States, insurance companies eat up a lot of the healthcare dollars. In fact, it's twice as expensive in the U.S. and many people aren't covered. I know that the Canadian Dental Association hasn't taken a position on national dental care, but doesn't it make more sense rather than putting public funds into insurance companies to enhance their profits, to make sure that we're expanding public coverage of dental care and making sure in that way that adds to your other 3 points about ensuring that the country's dentists come through this pandemic and the economic crisis that's part of it?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think actually we're going to be part of a panel on health coming up whenever we get past this economic crisis and the COVID-19 healthcare crisis. So I mean, I think given what we've all gone through and this collapse in demand, we're all looking at a totally new environment where we're going to have to innovate and pivot. I know we'd be happy to be part of any conversation, and we would be happy to look at any alternatives. I will say that right now the product that's out there is the extended health benefits, and Canadians are really stressed. The mental health issues right now for Canadians are huge, and that's part of that. My back's killing me from my home office. My patients are chipping teeth left, right, and center. So that's at least a quick vehicle. There may be better vehicles long term. So thank you.
Thank you both for that. Elizabeth May, a question here.
Yeah, it's really hard to know with so many compelling witnesses, and thank you all for being here. But one theme that seems to come through is post-pandemic and what we've learned about our globalized supply chains. We might want to be looking at more energy security, more food security, more that's being done locally. And I wanted to really turn to Mark on that, because Mark Schultz, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I agree that we should be more energy secure as a country. And I'm very, very supportive of your comments about turning to geothermal as having potential. I wonder if you have any reflections on how much of the funding that the federal government is providing for cleaning up orphaned wells. I understand that about 10% of those orphaned wells might have geothermal potential, and I wonder if you have any thoughts on that.
Mark?
Yeah, so sorry, Ms. May, can you just repeat the question again?
The question is related to the cleanup of orphaned wells, where I understand about 10% of those wells might have enough heat at depth for turbines for actual geothermal electricity.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be the subject matter expert on the, in that piece of the business, but certainly what I would say is that there is huge potential to go back to existing wells and assess the viability for geothermal. At the end of the day, a geothermal well is drilled the exact same way as an oil or natural gas well. So I guess maybe I'll just leave it at that and just say I don't know the percentages or what that would look like. I just know that it is possible.
Well, I didn't want Peter Julian to get the only drilled down question, so we're going from Dan to.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and welcome to the committee. We'll go to Marty Morantz, and then we'll wrap it up with Peter Fragiskatis. Marty?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question to the chartered professional accountants. I've been hearing from some of the accountants. Can you hear me, Mr. Chair?
Marty, we're not hearing you very well.
Sorry.
There you go. That's better.
To the chartered professional accountants. I've been hearing from some of the firms in my riding that, and I've made a point of this in the past, there are many gaps in these emergency programs, but one of them that I found interesting was among the professional accountants. Many of them, they can't show the required revenue loss year over year because in February, March, and April they're busy processing their clients' tax returns, and they leave their billings until after tax season. And apparently this is a widespread problem, and CPA firms are struggling because they can't maintain their staff because they don't have the revenue. And I'm just wondering if you've been hearing reports of this and if you have any comments on it.
Go ahead. Who's on, Bruce or?
Well, I could take a run at it. I don't know if Joy wanted to or not.
Joy, whoever wants to go. The two of you can go for that matter. Start, Bruce, and then we'll give Joy a chance.
All right, I'll go first. From what I'm hearing, it really depends on what the firm does too. I think a fair bit of work for our profession has slowed down. Assurance work, I think that has slowed down a bit just because a lot of that does require more than working at home. I think for tax people, they've been kept pretty busy dealing with the compliance. So I think it really depends on the nature of the firm. And the other thing I've heard is that it has hit smaller firms probably worse than larger firms. I think the larger firms were set up better for working at home and that kind of thing. So like many smaller businesses, I think they were hurt as well. And I think some practices focused on elder care as well. And I think that's been an issue. It's very difficult to work on those clients right now.
Joy, did you want to add to that?
No, I think Bruce has really covered it on. I was going to say that what we are hearing does seem to come more from small, medium-sized practitioners, where their revenue is more specific to certain parts of the year, where the larger firms across the country are in a number of advisory services, audit services, and tax services. So it's more spread out. There definitely are some issues with variations in revenue, whether it's in the accounting profession or across the country. And I think that's one area that we did identify in some of the issues that we are discussing with the government now.
Okay, thank you both. And turning to wrap it up to Peter Fragiskatis. Floor is yours, Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is to Ms. Carter. Ms. Carter, you've done an excellent job encapsulating for us during this testimony the economic footprint that airports contribute to communities. In London, Ontario, we're fortunate enough to have the London International Airport. It's done a tremendous job in terms of its growth in recent years. 500,000 is the number of commuters that they were seeing pass through the airport just a couple years ago. I think that number is in and around 650, 700,000 now. It's really important to our city, and I know that's true for cities and regions across the country. If you can put to us, taken to its very core, what is your key recommendation to the federal government? You've said a number of things here today very eloquently, but what would you say is at the top of the list as far as your concerns and how the government can assist at this time?
Joyce?
So it's a very
go ahead.
Yeah, very timely question. Thank you so much for your question. And really key, top of the list. We asked for cash. We were told cash isn't going to happen. So elimination of ground lease rent, but that doesn't help all airports. But most importantly, looking for loan bond guarantees and preferred payments to our lenders. What's going to happen to airports, I talked about the debt, is they're going to start to trip the covenants in their debt, which has a number of serious consequences after that. And so we need to get some relief around upcoming debt covenants and debt payments to get us through this really important time. And frankly, to allow us to do some of the borrowing I spoke of earlier that necessarily we would prefer not to do, but we know we're going to have to do. So long as we're in bad position with our borrowers, airports are not going to be able to continue to operate in the future the way they have done in the past. And so those have been our main requests from the federal government to date.
Okay, with that, I certainly want to thank members and thank the witnesses for their forthright answers, taking the time and giving their presentations. I would also say too, I think there's a couple of people on here have connections to Fort McMurray. I would send our best regards to those citizens of Fort McMurray on behalf of all committee members. You have had some tough times on top of difficult times, and we pass on our best regards from all parties and all members in that point. And I guess as a last point, I would make it's been a long few weeks. I want to thank the clerks, the analysts, and the technicians who are working with quite a number of committees to to make this system work as best we can in these difficult times. So with that, we'll adjourn the meeting, and thank you all, and we'll see you all next week. Meeting adjourned.